Just to open a chair for somebody. It's right here. Get them around.
Call this meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice is required under the Open Public Meetings Act was emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star, and the New Coaster on December the 19th of 2024. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office and that a copy has been filed with the borough clerk. Ms. Noble? Here. Ms. Greenblatt? Here. Mr. Nowicki?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mayor Gutozzi.
Here. Thank you, Erica. So welcome, everyone. I see we have a full house. That's exciting. We set this meeting up in this full spirit of transparency to make sure that all of you had the opportunity to listen to the debate, the discussion, to make sure that you had the opportunity to contribute your thoughts, your feedback. The way the meeting tonight is going to work, it's a little different than a typical council meeting in that this is a special meeting. We focus on one topic. Everyone knows the topic is Sylvan Lake. The borough and me personally have been, well, before me, the borough has been working on Sylvan Lake, evaluating the health of the lake, evaluating whether or not there were opportunities to dredge the lake, probably going back 20 plus years, certainly 20 years, maybe more. I don't know if Norm Wolfarb's in the room. I don't think he is, but many of you know Norm, and Norm was a council member for a number of years, 6 years, I think. And I was talking to him this morning. He's the head of our OEM. And we were talking about tonight's meeting coming up, and he said to me, oh my God, Sylvan Lake has been a challenge for us for years. We, the Borough of Bradley Beach, have never had the money to dredge the lake.
Could you speak up?
Yeah, the mics aren't on.
Yes, they are.
No, but you can't.
Make it louder?
Turn the volume up.
Not without it.
I got a red light on. I'm going to lean forward. Is that better?
Yes.
You can almost hear an echo now.
Okay.
We've got extra chairs in the front.
Jane is obsessed with the fact that we have 2 extra chairs. If
I'm
any-
a sitter, so if I see a different seat, I sit. I'm sorry, Mayor.
All right.
Go ahead.
So every 5 minutes or so, we're gonna announce there's still 2 chairs here. As I was saying, the Borough of Bradley Beach has recognized Sylvan Lake being an issue, a challenge for the borough. Everyone, I think everyone in this room cares about the lake, wants to protect Sylvan Lake. The question is how? Now, the way the meeting tonight's gonna work, we're gonna have a discussion, a workshop. This is the way legally we're allowed to talk in front of all of you. We have to be in a meeting. I can't invite the council over to my house and discuss this stuff. So we are meeting here in front of you. We're gonna workshop first. You're gonna hear from our engineer. You're gonna hear from another expert, Captain Al Majeski, an environmental guru who's worked on many projects like this. But before, and then ultimately, you will all have as much time as you like to ask questions. We want to make sure everybody gets a chance to express themselves, and that everybody understands where the council stands in terms of our thinking. We have a vote scheduled. We don't have to vote. It really is going to depend on the outcome of this discussion. But we do have a resolution. Councilman Nowicki will read it when we get into our workshop. The resolution is geared towards providing you all, the public, with a framework for what we're trying to accomplish. It outlines at a very high level, and you're going to hear presentations as well, but it outlines at a very high level our vision for the lake. And even among us, there are issues, because I've talked to people individually, there are questions that Councilwoman Greenblatt has raised, there are questions I have, there may be other questions on the council. But understand that for 20 years we've had this problem. Understand that for 5 years that I've been involved as a council member, I've been working with a team of environmentalists. They led the charge. I listen in and take notes and ask some questions. Captain Al Majeski, sitting over here to my left in the blue shirt, is one of the foremost experts, probably, certainly in New Jersey and possibly beyond. He works with American Littoral. He will speak tonight. And I've been working with Captain Al. I've had the pleasure of working with him not only on the Maritime Forest, but also on Sylvan Lake for 5 years. So all of these changes we envision that might occur, we've gotten to a point where we need to move forward. Now, we don't need to move forward with these specific changes. If we all collectively agree that there are better ways to fix the lake, we're wide open to suggestions. But what we're going to discuss tonight is why we think, our experts think, what we're doing is in the best interest of the lake. And you'll all have a chance to challenge that, or present your information. I will say, and Erica doesn't know I'm about to say this, but I'm not going to rigidly adhere to 5-minute limits. If somebody needs 6 or 7 minutes, hopefully you don't all need 6 or 7 minutes, we'll be here till midnight. But if you need 7 minutes each, we'll be here till midnight. Whatever you need, I want to make sure people who made the effort to come out tonight get a chance to be heard. But at the end of the evening, you'll make your comments, and then we will decide whether or not we continue with the vote. All our vote means, if we were to approve the resolution as it's currently drafted, all that will mean is we are publicly announcing our vision. We're not hiring anyone to do anything. We're not going to start construction work tomorrow. There's a far longer process. A lot of what we're going to discuss tonight is a long-term vision of what we want for the lake. It's not what we're going to start doing tomorrow. Some of this could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road. But the challenge is, I'm going to ask this last question of all of you, and then we'll get going. The challenge is, I think we all agree we want to save the lake. If there's anyone here who doesn't think the lake is at risk, as you watch ducks walk across the lake because the water's 6 inches deep, 1 foot deep, if anyone here thinks the lake is not at risk and we should do nothing at all, you're going to be disappointed. Because everyone that I know, and I'm talking about experts, are telling us the lake is dying. And it's not going to last a long time going forward if we don't do some pretty dramatic things. And that's an option. We may all decide, you know what, let the lake die. You may all decide that. Collectively, we all may decide that. I can tell you the reason we're all sitting here is because that is the furthest thought from my mind and from my council colleagues' mind, we want to fix the lake. So all the discussion we're gonna have about how fast traffic flows and, or, you know, what percentage of runoff feeds the lake that's warmer by 5 degrees than the rest of the lake, all that stuff is anecdotal in my mind, and I'll let you challenge this, I'm just telling you where I stand. It's anecdotal to the ultimate goal of, do we save the lake? So please, as you speak, please give us, if you don't like the plan you're hearing, please give us your recommendations. What are we missing? What else can we do? So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you for bearing with me for a minute. We are going to begin, what item is this? It's a single item agenda. Item number 5, the workshop. And I think I've mentioned this, but yes, use it, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure, I don't want to send it.
Well, I'd like us all to be aware that we hit
Okay.
a 5-minute mark.
Got it, okay. So make sure I'm doing
We
this
have a really
properly.
cool 5-minute timer, and I just announced we're not gonna
Okay.
hold you to 5, but I will hold you to 6 or 7. At some point, we need time for other people to speak. Councilman Nowicki, most of you know him, he actually looks over the lake and enjoys his view as well. Is an engineer by training, very accomplished in his career, recently retired. We're thrilled to have him a member of our council. He has been my right hand, my liaison to this technical advisory committee, the TAC. He has been meeting regularly, a couple times a month, I believe, with Captain Al Majeski, with our engineer, Ben Matlack, Bennett, as his friends call him. I call him Ben. So Paul is really our resident expert for the council. Again, he's been coordinating with environmentalists and 3 or 4 other engineering firms. So we're coming to this meeting armed with a good amount of opinions expressed by our experts. But I'm now going to turn it over to Councilman Nowicki to lead the workshop. So, Paul?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that, well, welcome everybody for coming, and thank you all for the interest that you've taken out of your day to come and do this. This is what we want. We want to engage the public. We've been doing workshops, we've been doing commission meetings, we've walked around, passed out flyers around the community, trying to get the community engaged to understand the challenge that we have and all the work we're trying to do to address the challenges. And also get your input. We need that input to make sure that we're making the best decisions that we can as a council. And also to be able to give guidance and our professionals understand what are the concerns of the community. And from there, they can develop their alternatives or concepts. And this process, as the mayor had noted, has been going on for years. And then, I guess about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot of issues that started to happen on the infrastructure was failing, walls collapsing, the outlet that controls the water levels breaking, water emptying out, water not being able to get out, the ocean outfall pipe collapsing on the beach, creating a giant sinkhole. Meanwhile, Avon, on the other side of the lake, which it's not just our choice of what happens to the lake, we share this lake with Avon, our neighbor, and so we have a joint commission. Meanwhile, Avon has been doing a restoration along their side through their grants that they've received and did a living shoreline. They didn't have, where they did have some walls, they removed them. They created the naturalization of aquatic life and whatnot to address their side of the lake. And they got about 70% complete on that, and then had to pursue additional funding. And Captain Al will talk more about that and touch on that. So this is a joint effort between both boroughs, and the commission, the Lake Commission, has representatives of both and have been very engaged in this whole process. And with that, I was never on the Lake Commission, and then I had the privilege to serve as the liaison, taking Mayor Al's position that he was the liaison. And I started as a resident, just getting engaged with the Lake Commission about 2.5 years ago, and just going to the meetings and trying to find out what is going on, and how do we fix this lake, and how do we deal with the issues, and where's the money coming from, because we had to do it fiscally responsible, as well as what are the solutions and what were all the problems. And so it was one eye-opener, one major education, and being a professional engineer that I am, I'm not practicing as a professional engineer in this case, but I bring that knowledge working with the professionals that we've hired to do this work. So I just want to make that clear, that I'm not the engineer of record. I'm not engineering this work. I'm coordinating with these individuals and understanding what they're bringing to the table and asking them a lot of questions about what they're proposing, how we're going to do this, and what are we going to do. So tonight we have Captain Al Majeski. He's going to speak from an environmental perspective. And then Ben Matlick, our borough engineer from CME, will be discussing one of our projects in particular, which is the wall replacement along Bradley Boulevard between Madison and Evergreen. And that is basically, from what our engagement with the public has been, has become the most controversial portion of this overall program for Sylvan Lake. Before we start that, though, I want to just take one step just to fill everybody in on some of the other projects, because there's a lot of progress being made. There's a lot of things that are happening around the lake. And before we just focus on that, I just want to give a quick update on the ocean outfall, which is the pipe that's underneath the dunes that goes out to the ocean. And that job started about 2 years ago, and the design is done. DEP is leading that. It's a 80-20% share of cost between the DEP and the boroughs. The boroughs share 50-50 of that 20% or 10% of the cost. That's a $4.2 million project overall, roughly. And that construction, because of some endangered species of the plant, was supposed to not begin until December 1st. The survey was done. The plant does not exist in the area of the work, and so the work will begin this fall before December 1st. We're having a construction kickoff meeting tomorrow. There's a construction kickoff with DEP and the contractor to schedule and begin that work, which once we have that information, we'll share that information about what is going to be happening in the dunes, because they have to remove some of the dunes to get down to the pipe that's down below. Well, it's a wood box, and they're going to replace that wood box with a 52-inch pipe. So that's going to begin, and that most of that, 80% of that money is being paid by DEP. Secondly, there's also the ocean outlet. I should say the Sylvan Lake outlet pipe. The gate that controls the water flow out of the lake. We've already advanced the engineer to start beginning the design on that. We also have a meeting this week with DEP on that. We are trying to get an emergency status to get that project moving forward from permitting and DEP approval, that we could find a way to expedite that project as an emergency status. We're also going to be talking to DEP about, can we take that job and incorporate it into the ocean outfall project? If we were able to expedite it on an emergency basis, can we combine those so that we have the same contractor and do that work in a change order, which would be and see if DEP would potentially help participate on that 80% cost share. So we're not paying, us and Rural Avon are not carrying the load for that project. That's roughly a $850,000 total cost for that project. And if we can get the DEP to cover 80% of that and do that, we can save ourselves a lot of money and be able to expedite that work. And that's a critical project that needs to happen. So with that, those are the two jobs that are major that are happening. The third one you're going to hear from Ben today about, which is the wall replacement. And then there's other work that we are pursuing, as the mayor mentioned, on the dredging our water quality channel, which would basically address all these up to 100,000 cubic yards of silt in the lake. We want to try to remove that. We don't have funding for that yet. We're pursuing that in a couple different ways, as well as the outfalls that come into the lake and getting that water treated, as well as building additional living shoreline up around Main Street. So those projects are not funded yet, and we are looking to and pursuing grant money for the design and construction for those projects. So what we're looking at, and what the recommendations have come from the work that Captain Al, the Littoral Society, and the environmental scientists and engineers, there's a holistic overall program that all needs to happen incrementally to fix this lake and to improve the lake overall. One thing in and of itself is not gonna solve the problem. Dredging by itself would be great. It's gonna cost a lot of money to dredge, potentially upwards of $10 million. We don't know yet because we don't know the environmental characteristics, the contaminants yet, and how badly the lake is contaminated and what the cost would be to remove and dispose of that material. As a result, what we're trying to do is find every other component that we can do to maintain the health of the lake or to fix the health where it's not healthy. And with that, I want to be able to turn it over to Captain Al, who's going to talk about what the issues are with the lake and really what needs to happen to restore this lake and what are the things that environmentally are of concern. Captain Al?
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Hey, everybody. I am Captain Al Majeski. I'm with the American Livable Society. We're a nonprofit organization that cares for the coast and empowers others to care for the coast. We're out of Sandy Hook. And I call this our lake because I'm also a Bradley Beach resident. So I've been in Bradley Beach since 2000. I think I was 25, 26 years. I was one of the beginning members of the Silver Lake Commission back then when Greg Ferry was commissioned. He's long past now, but we started working with these lakes, and then moving forward, there's another 14, 15 coastal lakes in Monmouth and Ocean counties that are experiencing the same things that this lake's experiencing right now. So just a little bit about Silver Lake. It's about 17 acres. Back in 2003, I did a white paper on this lake as well as the other coastal lakes, trying to see, here's the problem. We went to the government officials and we estimated to restore and repair all these lakes. And like you had said, it's not just dredging, it's multiple things that need to be done to really restore these lakes.
Could you turn the TV a little bit so we could see?
Can I?
Yeah, yes, you can.
Okay, cool. If you
Breaking
break it,
body.
All right, sorry about that. Cool. So, wrote a white paper, cost out back in 2003, what do we need to restore all those lakes? And brought it to Senator Smith at that time. And it was about $50 million for all these lakes. So dredging is expensive, of course. That's the big one. If the material is contaminated, it costs more to dispose of it. We want to use the material as much as we can on any kind of restoration we can around this area. Like I've already said, it's shared between Avalon and Bradley Beach. Direct connection to the Atlantic Ocean. We're working on that now. It does provide some stormwater management. It's basically been called, it was a FEMA grant, Avalon applied for, as a treatment pond, which I didn't like that because there's actually a lot of ecology there on this lake. It does support local wildlife. There is some recreation there. We used to ice skate on it back in the day. And then there's a whole story about Captain Kidd. I don't know if y'all knew that, but somewhere there's treasure buried in Silver Lake. I always kind of bring that up. So this is what it is today. And this was borrowed from the Silver Lake Commission from Greg Matthews. I think, unless Marty, you might be your slide. But either way, it kind of shows what the lake looks like right now. The Avalon side, you have these living shorelines, or I might refer to them as nature-based strategies, or those kind of solutions. We have the older living shoreline that was designed by Abaki at the toe edge on the eastern side. It's more of a parking place to sit. And then we have the dilapidated wood bulkhead piece and some stone wall. And then that circle right there is the outfall, where a lot of rainwater comes in and at each one of these street ends. So the challenges, this is the same for almost every coastal lake that's in Monmouth and Ocean counties. Sedimentation, these things are filling up, and it's happening at an alarming rate. When I was here 20-some years ago, when I would sample the lake, I could get a boat through and all kinds of stuff. We just got done doing sediment sampling, and they had to slide the boat on the mud on the western end just to get a sample of sediment there. So that made it pretty difficult, and it's happening to me at an alarming rate. You know, when you see the birds out there, they're actually standing. They're not floating. Poor water quality. Dissolved oxygen is not that high in this lake. Monmouth University has a thing called CloNet, and somebody in town volunteers and samples the lakes for the water quality. And they're noticing certain trends and things that are happening to this lake as well as comparing that to other coastal lakes. We're seeing temperatures rise. The temperature of the lakes are rising. Nutrients are in there that's causing algal blooms. It's rising because the water's not cooling down. It's coming right off the roads, it's sheeting, and going right into the stormwater pipes and doesn't have time to cool down. So they're seeing now at Monmouth University anywhere between 2 to 5, 6 degrees temperature difference happening in these lakes. We have geese, of course. If you have short grass, the geese are gonna come. If you can get above your knees, basically, the geese aren't gonna stay, they're gonna leave. We have public access, and then, like was already mentioned, we do have failing infrastructure. So we're in a good place right now, not necessarily the challenges, but the things that are being done and talked about for the state. I was just, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was on a trolley with Senator Kim, and he wanted to address the coastal lakes, so we visited 5 different lakes. And he said that he would do our champion, as best as he can to try to get funding for us to move forward with some of these projects to really repair and restore these lakes. And I just want to let you know too, it's not just a lake. There's a lot more connected to that lake. So this is the whole watershed. Here's Silver Lake. So there's a lot of stuff dumping down here from other towns as well. I think Lake Alberta's one passes through, goes from Neptune City. But it's a pretty large watershed. So whatever happens uptown affects this. This is the last stop. This is where everything winds up. So I want to talk about the grant that I'm working on right now. My grant started on Silver Lake about 2 years ago. It's a Readiness Environmental Protection Integration Planning Grant through the Department of Defense. They gave us $200,000 to begin planning, start engineering design, and then renewing that this month. So we'll have another to keep going with permits and things like that, engineering, working with Ben to try to figure out how we can balance all these projects together. Marty's talking to all the different projects going on the lake too, so we're really trying to coordinate this. It's a big time for the lake. But for mine, it's a planning grant, and it's just a holistic approach to really helping the health of the lake, and using nature-based strategies is what mine is mainly for. How we can hybridize that with some of the structural pieces that Ben's designing, we can. But it's for preserving military missions. So if the lake floods and military people can't get to their posts, we have to figure a way to get them there. So that's kind of how this grant came. And also to give them some passive recreation, so military members clear their minds, so they're mission ready when something does happen. And we're supposed to improve water quality as best as we can. So that's why we're looking at the different outfalls, and we have a bunch of ideas on how we want to design these things as we move forward. We did do a conceptual design. We had a stakeholders meeting about 2 years ago, and then things kind of slowed down and stopped. So I had to pick up the grant again and try to get it moving. And we're in a good place now, getting close. You may not know this, but you did mention the Technical Advisory Committee. This is everybody involved. We have about 14 members who meet monthly, either at Avon Municipal Marina or Bradley Beach, wherever we can get a place. And it's just experts and others involved in the project that can help us really assess the needs to repair this lake. Some of these are involved, like Monmouth County, they're doing a project, I'll talk about it when I can, across the road for the outfall. Any project happening at this lake right now can be considered in-kind service. So that's funding you can leverage to get other funding. And for us, with the REPI grant, they match 1-to-1. So if we had, I'm just saying it out, if we had $10 million worth of project going around this lake, the DOD would give us $10 million cash to restore that lake. That can help. So we're trying to balance all these jobs out as they come. Princeton Hydro is my engineer. They're going to be working with Ben together. We're just waiting for that final piece of funding contract to get that moving. So what's been done? I know you guys probably saw the A-frame out in the boat. That was sediment sampling we did with aqua surveys. We did 13 sites out there to kind of really assess what the sediment was, what contaminants are there. I haven't reviewed the total report until Friday, but yes, there's contaminants. I don't know what the state's going to say how we can use that material or where we have to take it. I don't know the level of contamination. I haven't read all that. And we've done plenty of site visits. We've had 1 or 2 stakeholder meetings. Monthly, the TAC meets, like I said, in Avalon before here. We have a very conceptual plan because at the time when we were moving to our grant, that's when you got funding. And that changed everything. So we were looking at a holistic natural strategy for the whole lake. And then the money came from bulkhead repairs and things like that. So we had to kind of really start communicating. How are we going to integrate all this together? So if we're going to have a bulkhead, can we still have some areas where people can get down to the water, or we can treat stormwater better? Things like that. We've done bathymetry, and that's the depth of water at the bottom. Sediment in here varies between 3 to 7 feet deep. of unconsolidated material right now. When I was down 20 years ago, we didn't have that much. So it's really piling up in there, a lot of sediment. We guessed to what we want to move out. Part of our design has water quality improvement channel that bisects the lake basically. To do that, we have to remove about 97,000 cubic yards. That's a lot. And that's how much material is in there right now. So we're trying to figure out ways to use that material any way we can to do the dredging. So sample complete, just got a final report for sediment, and I'm reviewing that this week. We'll have something to really look at, because that's really going to kind of put us on what's it going to cost to really heal this lake. So that brings in, I didn't know if everybody knew what a living shoreline was. They're kind of phasing that terminology out, the state is now, and calling it nature-based strategies or solutions. But it's just really a method to stabilize, naturally stabilize the shoreline, or a bank, or if you see on the Avon side, they have plantings and things like that. It attracts pollinators, and really kind of diversifies the bank itself, and provides that. Not a lot of maintenance once everything establishes. But in the beginning, yes, you have to kind of maintain. Maintain between land and water that connectivity. And there's so many different types of shorelines, techniques that you can use. So we're looking at that too. I do a lot of marsh work. So with coconut fiber logs, I built oyster reefs. I built the dunes in Bradley Beach. I had Christmas trees. I did the maritime forest. All these are different strategies and ideas and how you have to develop it to get what you wanted out of that restoration itself. So I just want to give you a little bit of advantages of the living shorelines. Pretty easy stuff. It's not just about erosion. It creates habitat. We like that. The pollinator gardens, it's better for carbon sequestration, so it's cleaning the air. More diversified. It can help get rid of geese if you plant the right stuff and different heights. It improves water quality. So when I mentioned sheeting, that's water coming directly off the road into the storm water, or right off. Mowed turf has relatively the same runoff coefficient as asphalt. So when it rains, all this stuff is just getting washed into the lake. It improves, it allows it to percolate and filter the water. And also slows the water transport down to cool the temperatures. Flood mitigation, that's one of the goals in my grant that I'm doing, the planning grant, was to make sure that we can reduce the risk of flooding as best as possible. Working in concert with these other projects, I think we can. And aesthetics and recreation. This is just a quick slide, but it just shows that there's an economic piece to a living shoreline and how it's valued for ecosystem services as well. So there's a price on it. And there's also less damage to homes and flooding homes. At least the work that we've done. So there's tons of studies out there that kind of show the value of this strategy and not just going up there and putting the bulkhead up. And just know when you're more resilient during storms, in concert with these other projects, probably maintain certain levels in that lake, reduce the risk of flooding for sure, and absorb some of that energy as well from storms. And I just wanted to show you real quick disadvantages of bulkheads. So I'm not a big hard structure guy. I like the softer stuff when it can work. There are times where we combine bulkheads with natural living shoreline stuff, connect them together. I'm doing work right now in Delaware Bay, huge breakwaters out of stone, 4-ton stone, and these are stretching miles to protect the coastline down there, and then hopefully a pre-sediment to build back the marsh. When it gets to the right elevation, I seed it, I plant it, and I'm going to try to restore 400 acres as it happens. But basically, when you have more fetch, at least in Delaware Bay, I put something like this up, a bulkhead, it's going to get hit by waves nonstop, all that kind of action. Eventually the sand comes out, it gets scoured, and it begins to fail. There's a lot of maintenance with bulkheads. They last about 25 years, depending on the material. And then we lose habitat. So that was just kind of a schematic to show you the disadvantage of a bulkhead, especially if we have a big water body. So this, if you came to the first stakeholders meeting that we had, this is our conceptual design, very conceptual. So it was just ideas up there to kind of talk to you and say, hey, what do you think about this, or how about that? So it involved things like almost like tree pits, which are your stormwater, where your stormwater goes into the lake, you plant a tree in there, or some kind of grass so that it has time to kind of treat itself. It could be something like infrastructure, so they call them stormwater manufactured treatment devices. It might be retrofitting some of those to treat that first flush. And then maybe even floating wetlands. So we didn't know, right? And it's just ideas. We're looking at maybe some island creation, because there's an island there, and we can have some place to stockpile some material, some dredge material. How can we use it? Can we raise some of the elevations along the shoreline? Is there areas that places with other projects so we can maximize getting what we can out of this one mobilization? But overall, it's just greening up. And the red dot over there again is the outfall that we want to retrofit or actually put a vault in of some sort to treat stormwater before it comes in and hopefully control some of that velocity, because when it comes out, and we have a big storm. So with my grant, next steps, well, this is one. There's a meeting with you guys, just to kind of talk about stuff that we're doing and looking at. I need to go to DEP again and talk to them with my sediment report in hand and say, here's what we have, here's the contaminants, here's the level of contamination. Can we use that? One of the original ideas we had, and it's still on the table, was along the shoreline, there's things called geotubes, and you can fill them with sediment. The idea was to make a wetland bench or stack them up and then plant them and let, it's called phytoremediation, let the plants take out the toxins of that sediment and still use it. That way we're taking it out of the lake, but really shoring up the shoreline 42. So these are all different ideas that we can have. We'll have a pre-app meeting with the state. We already talked to the Army Corps. This is not an Army Corps federal project at all. They're not regulated. So that's good. That's good news for us. We'll finalize a hybrid design with Ben and his group when we get to that part, and then submit permits and just permit applications and just wait 3 months, and then hopefully we'll all have a design or something that we want to put on our lake to save our lake. This is what you guys were just talking about. These are the other 3 projects kind of happening. I just put them up there because I wasn't sure Councilman Paul wanted to jump in and talk about them. Well, you already did, so, but I'll leave that up there for now. And that's that. If you want to reach out to me, you can. I answer my email, I answer my cell. I'm right downtown. So if you see me around, you have questions, please. We want to hear from you. We want to work with you. But we want to save our lake. And I love this little lake. I've been on it for 25 years practically. So hopefully we can do something now. If we wait too long, it's going to get worse. And that's what's happening. So they call it eutrophic, so it's slowly dying. But now it seems like in the past 5 years, like you mentioned, it's happening more rapidly. So if you guys have any questions, I guess after Ben, that's fine, but I can give you any kind of information you want on the lake, any kind of ecology stuff for it. Okay. Thanks for having me.
So, just so everyone's tracking along with us, we're going to get through the presentations. When we're done with the presentations, I think there's some value in having the council have a brief discussion, our workshop, and then open it up to the public for questions of everyone. So, I guess my first question is, Captain, are you able to stay with us a little while longer, or do you have to leave? Okay, great.
I can hang out.
You live in the neighborhood, so.
And just walk over here.
But we'll try to open up so you'll be able to ask any or all of us questions, but I'd love to keep the momentum moving. So, Ben, we can turn it over to you.
Yeah, just, you go out there. So Captain Al was talking about all these, the implementation of the various strategies on all these projects. And the one that's really critical for us to move forward with right now, because of funding and whatnot, Ben can touch on this, I believe, but is the actual bulkhead replacement, and how do we incorporate these strategies into that section of the project in order to deal with the water quality issues, the environmental, the ecology. And so that's where the coordination of these projects in between these different consultants and different ends of the lake, and how to incorporate these strategies that Captain Allen and his studies have demonstrated that we need to incorporate. So with that, Mr. Matlock.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Captain Al. It was an excellent presentation. I hope I can live up to it. And my friends call me Ben or Bennett, so you're good either way.
Ben, I'll call you Ben. I'm thinking it might be helpful if you were able to
Face the
stay
audience.
sideways, at least
That's
so the
fine.
audience can hear better.
That's fine. I can All right, great. today to talk to you about the project that I'm working on, the repair of the failing bulkhead. You heard Captain Al talk about it. It is a wooden bulkhead. I'm sure most of you have probably seen it or are very familiar with it. It's the only portion of the bulkhead that remains that's still wood, and it is failing. There are sections that have fully deteriorated. There's very little left. There are areas that have eroded in, and you see the snow fence that's been there for a few years, just to keep people away for safety reasons. So the intent of the design for the replacement of the bulkhead is to mimic the improvements that are on the east side at Sylvan Lake Park, the ship-looking shoreline over there. So this is the intersection of Bradley Boulevard and Evergreen Avenue. You can see the kind of U-shape of the bulkhead that was installed back in about 2018, 2019. What happened was the existing wooden bulkhead that was there was cut off at the bottom, and a modular block wall bulkhead was installed about 7 feet behind it. That left about 12 feet between the roadway and the new bulkhead, and a sidewalk was installed, which kind of limits the amount of space that's available there. You can see on the left side, you've got some benches, and then on the right side where the wall ends, you pick up again with more benches. But in the middle, there's really not much room for anything. You can't put a bench there, otherwise you're right up against the edge of the top of the wall, and it's not very comfortable to sit there looking down, at a 4-foot drop. So we look at how can we improve upon this design, and because we have to replace this wooden bulkhead, it's a necessity. It's already done. We discussed that. It affords us the opportunity to make improvements and look at things, not just replacing the bulkhead, but keeping in mind the water quality of the lake, the overall multiple projects and designs that are being discussed for the lake, and it gives us an opportunity to improve the lake, not just maintain it. If you just maintain, you dredge the lake, if we do nothing else, sediment will make its way back into the lake, and you'll be in the same position in a few years. So we look at different design options. At the top, we looked at matching essentially the design from the first phase. I'll call it the first phase. Moving that wall back, the bulkhead back 6 feet to allow a living shoreline to be planted. And then that leaves you about 13 feet of space between the curb and the new bulkhead to have your proposed walkway, benches, street trees, and leaving the existing road intact. Right now, it's parking along the lakeside. It's striped and designated. There is parking allowed on the other side. It's just not specifically striped. So that's one option. The second option that we looked at is moving the curb line in, changing the road width from 50 feet to 44 feet. And that allows an opportunity to strike the road for share the road striping between cars and bicycles, still maintains parking on both sides, and it kind of just shifts the whole green space over by 6 feet. The benefit of maintaining that green space is that you create a still usable area. between the curb and the new bulkhead. What's good about this is that from a traffic safety standpoint, it's more desirable to have a place for pedestrians to walk. Right now, there's no walkway on that side of the road. People park their cars along there, and they get out and they have to walk in the street. They're walking along the street to go to the beach. They pull their beach wagons, or they push strollers, and this has been observed in the field. I've seen it myself. And there's also no evidence that people are using the greenway to walk. A lot of times you'll see what they call a cow path, a worn path in the grass where people always walk. We don't see that along the greenway path. This also affords the opportunity to change the striping, put in crosswalks. If you have a sidewalk on both sides of the road, we can allow people to cross the street at controlled locations. Currently, there's no striping, no crosswalks. People can cross the street. 50-foot wide road is very wide, and it's uncontrolled, and cars can be surprised by people hopping out of behind parked cars to cross the street. The other thing this allows is, it's not specifically depicted on this image because this is just to show the dimensions, but you have a slope from the curb down to the lake. It's not perfectly flat like that. So by expanding the greenway by another 6 feet, it allows you room for grading. It allows you room to put benches in there, to put trees in there, and that is a benefit. You also have room for tree roots. If you narrow that greenway and leave it only about 13 feet wide, it doesn't afford you very much flexibility to install a tree. You want to keep your trees at least 8 feet away from the bulkhead, if not more, and you don't want the roots to negatively impact the bulkhead. So the last option we look at is same as the second option. Now take 6 feet, move that curb line in, and have dedicated bike lanes. We would remove parking on one side of the road, the lake side, leave parking on the side with the residential homes, and we would stripe it for dedicated bike lanes. It still gives us the same benefit of maintaining that width of the greenway, and it's a good option for a good multimodal, safe corridor. Environmentally speaking, this is going to reduce the amount of pavement by 6,500 square feet. That's about 12% of the roadway that would be reduced, which improves water quality. It results in less stormwater runoff. It actually cools down the water because there's less that's hitting the hot pavement. You have less road salts that are applied to the road. And by doing this, you increase the flood storage volume of silt lake. So this area is a flood zone. You're gaining 26,000 cubic feet of flood storage volume by moving that bulkhead 6 feet. If we go with the third option, you also have the benefit of removing parked cars on the road, and that results in less oils, less petrochemicals coming off of those parked cars, which drain right into the lake. So one of the things that we're showing here is the bioswale treatment. This area right here. where that outfall pipe is. This is at Madison Avenue. The bioswale is intended to improve water quality. As water filters through the stone there, and it would be planted with some live plantings, it filters out chemicals, and like Captain Earl was talking about, you get a water quality treatment. The plantings that would be selected for the living shoreline area in front of that bulkhead that you see would be low growth type plantings. We don't want to block people's views, and we want to keep the growth down low to it would be about 4 to 6 foot maximum height growth. So it would be only 0 to 2 feet above the height of the wall. Now this is different than the add-on side of the lake, because we have the hard wall. The add-on side, you have a slope. So the plantings that were installed on the add-on side are planted from the bottom to the top. So you get the 6 foot tall plants, but they're at the top of the slope. So this is a different treatment than what you see across the lake. So here are the two design options that I mentioned before. On the left, you see the share of the road markings, the parking on both sides, the crosswalks that would be installed, and double yellow lines to delineate the traffic lanes. On the right side, same thing, except the bike lanes are dedicated. They're delineated with that solid white line, and then the parking on the lake side is removed. The trees would be planted, spaced evenly, and there wouldn't be a gap there. It's just a gap just to illustrate the living shoreline outlet. Right there. Here's another view of the two design options. Again, share the road versus dedicated bike lanes. These are what we're looking at and what we're looking for the council's direction on to their preference and what is best for recreation. I think that's basically it.
So, I also wanted to at least acknowledge Marty McHugh. Marty, wave to the group.
There you go.
Marty's been working on this same task force for 5 years, leading a team of environmentalists and engineers. Marty, if you'd like to spend a minute, I know this is impromptu, but you're more than welcome to adjust the room if you'd like. Or I'm catching you totally off guard.
And Marty's also, he used to live on Evergreen, so he's also
A prior resident.
So I appreciate the chance. Like Mayor said, I've been working on this since 2019 when I was with a construction company that actually did the living shoreline on Avalon. And we learned a lot from that project. Those bioswales that Ben was just talking about, you can't even see them on the other side, even though they're there, because they're working, right? The plants are in there, they're taking out the contaminants, they're slowing down the sediment, cooling the water, and it's working, and it was a real success. Now, but we've learned certain things about certain plants, right, that we're going to transfer that knowledge to the other side. But I've had a lot of former hats in my life, working on this stuff for 40 years. One of them is Director of Fish and Wildlife. And so I was in charge of 350,000 acres of land, all the species that fly, walk, slither, right, swim all over the state. And when I look at these coastal lakes, Captain Al is an expert on this. I'm by no means an expert. When I look at these coastal lakes, they all have the same pretty much set of problems, and they're all dying. And your lake, which used to be, I used to live on Evergreen, so I used to feel like it was my lake back then. pull one or two out, but the more of these projects that you actually do for the lake, the better chances this lake is going to survive as a natural asset for all of you. And when you restore, and I was just researching this before I came over here for another project, when you restore an open space and create a park, right, your property values go up, right? Average is 16% in New Jersey, and that's Green Acres study. I'm using that for a brownfields presentation that we're giving. And so you're not only improving the quality of this resource for your community and your ability to use it and see it, you're restoring it for habitat, but you're also improving your property values. And you're mitigating, all of this stuff taken together is going to mitigate storm damage. So that's a positive economic. So there's a slide up there, I think Captain Al, there's a lot of information on there, but take a look at that slide. I think we can share this, but there really is an economic savings to this type of work. And we're doing this everywhere. I mean, it started out in Louisiana after Katrina, which I think we just had the anniversary. 20 years, right? And then in New Jersey, we started in earnest after Hurricane Sandy. And I was working with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. We were doing resilience projects up and down the coast. 2014, right, Captain Al? And we didn't really understand the best ways to do things back then. But that grant program, which was $100 million, we gave out to 13 states. That really helped us learn what works best. So you're gaining all of that knowledge base from those how many years in the past, and also places like Louisiana, and we're applying it right here in Sylvan Lake. And Sylvan Lake could be a model for the rest of the state in terms of coastal lakes, and that's what I think the mayors, Mayor Tosi and Mayor Bonanno, want to do. You can be looked to as a model, deal with this issue. So I'm here for questions and appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'm glad to see all of you here because it's real important that the public weighs in on these things. Because it's the fabric of your community, right? And I'm sure it's all important to you.
Thank you, Marty. And I've had the pleasure of working with these two gentlemen, Marty and Captain Al, for the past 5 years, beginning with my first year on council when I was challenged by members of the Sylvan Lake Commission as I was running for council for the first time. What are you going to do to help Sylvan Lake? So for 5 years I've been participating in these sessions, recently handed off to Councilman Nowicki, but I do want to tip my hat to both of you because I know a lot of your work has been volunteer. You have not been getting paid for a lot, if any, of the work, but you just have devoted a lot of your time and energy to helping Bradley Beach do what's right for our natural resources and very specifically Sylvan Lake. So let's have 10 minutes of council discussion, maybe till 5 after 7, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions that you all would like to make. Paul, can I ask you to lead the workshop?
So you wanted me to also read this resolution?
Yeah, if you,
context.
folks, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we do have a resolution. It's crafted to outline what our experts are sharing with us as the vision we should strive to achieve for Sylvan Lake. We are going to discuss this outline as a council. I know there are at least a couple of questions. There are probably going to be more. Among ourselves, we may say there are things we like or don't like. We're definitely going to turn it over to the public. At the end of the night, we're going to come back to this resolution and vote. So, or table. My preference would be to vote because, again, no direct action will be taken. We will bring this to the DEP, the New Jersey DEP, to say this is what we, the council, the leadership of Bradley Beach, envision for our lake. So that's our goal, is to approve something tonight, but we can certainly work on the content. Paul, just so the entire audience knows what the current draft says, if you wouldn't mind reading it out loud. Sure.
Okay, so the resolution states, a resolution for approving project plans for the improvement of Sylvan Lake along Bradley Boulevard. Offer the following resolution and move its adoption. Whereas Borough Bradley Beach, the borough, is responsible for the caretaking, maintenance, and repair of the improvements surrounding Sylvan Lake, as well as Bradley Boulevard as a municipal thoroughfare. And whereas the borough engineer presented certain project plans during the borough special council meeting on September 8th, 2025. And whereas while maintaining the standards of a collector roadway accommodating multiple traffic lanes, the contemplated project will replace the Sylvan Lake bulkhead along Bradley Boulevard and will further, now these are the key points, provide for environmental mitigation by enlarging Sylvan Lake and reduce the impervious roadway pavement. Second, provide a living shoreline along Sylvan Lake, including the creation of peninsulas for wildlife, for protection and support of wildlife, and including bioremediation swales to improve the water quality in Sylvan Lake. Third, increase the stormwater storage capacity of Sylvan Lake to reduce local flooding. Fourth, enhance pedestrian safety by providing a pervious walkway between Sylvan Lake and Bradley Boulevard. Fifth, create additional open space for recreation along Sylvan Lake and maximize pervious coverage area surrounding Sylvan Lake. Enhance traffic safety by providing multi-directional bicycle lanes and vehicle lanes, as well as providing spaces along, parking spaces along Bradley Boulevard. Eliminate metered parking on the south side of Bradley Boulevard. And install a manufactured stormwater treatment device to improve the water quality in Sylvan Lake. And pursue dredging of Sylvan Lake and or the creation of an alternative water quality channel. And whereas the borough engineer recommends that the project plans be approved for foregoing reasons, benefiting borough residents, visitors, and the environment, now therefore be it resolved by the mayor, council, and the borough of Bradley Beach, county of Monmouth, state of New Jersey, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the key points.
And those bullets, right now, we're going to discuss them fairly quickly. I mean, we're all somewhat familiar with them. We may have different opinions on some. But I will invite all of you to address any or all of the bullets. You may say, hey, 6 of the 7 or 6 of the 8. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. You may say you like 7 of the 9. But the 2 that you don't like, let's focus on those, if you will. But let's get started. Paul, any opening comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, Ben, I don't know if you addressed this, but the project is being funded by New Jersey DOT. And it's roughly a $2.4 million, correct me if I'm wrong, $2.4 million grant that is 100% DOT money that does not require any matching funds from the borough, as long as we bring in the project at $2.4 million. So it's 2.4 is the budget at 0 cost to the residents of Bradley Beach. But we have to stay within that budget. And so then the construction cost right now for this improvement between Madison and Evergreen, on which alternative and what's the price for the full build out?
Yeah, so the grant is a NJDOT, New Jersey Department of Transportation, local transportation project grant. And it's $2,442,600 to be exact. The cost estimate for either of these two scenarios that you see on the screen is approximately $2.1 million. So that's within the grant, within that $2.4 million. And the costs for engineering design and construction management and inspection are also eligible to be funded through the grant. So the project, because the construction cost is within that dollar amount, the engineering fees can also be encumbered in that grant too. So it would be 100% covered by the NJDOT.
And that would be, of course, if the bids were to come in to the engineer's estimate.
Yes, correct.
And that's everything on that picture?
I'm sorry?
That's everything on that picture, including moving the bulkhead?
Yes.
But not the engineering.
That's all. Yeah. Again, we'll open it up to questions in a couple minutes.
So,
No problem.
Then we get out of control if everybody started throwing out
I think
questions.
a lot of people have the same questions.
So, yeah, okay, so that's, to answer that question, yes, that's really redoing a reduction of Bradley Boulevard to 6 feet and incorporation of all the features that we have.
yes, it would incorporate
Between Madison and
between Madison and Evergreen, cutting off the old wooden bulkhead, installing the new bulkhead 6 feet back, creating a living shoreline planting area in between the old and the new bulkhead, and moving the curb line, removing a portion of the roadway, and as well as the infrastructure that goes with it. You have street lights out there, there are storm drains, street trees, the pervious walking path, and removing that whole pavement and then restriping for the new.
And again, because this project is limited, to this particular element of the project is limited between Evergreen and Madison, so then the roadway would end up having to basically jog, if you would, to open that additional 6 feet that we would reduce, we'd have to open back up
Yes.
until we were able to get funding to complete it from Madison to Main Street. And that's the intent, is that we would ultimately bring that curve in all the way up to Main Street and restrict parking along that length in that particular alternative, the bike way.
Yes.
Bike lane.
Yeah, that, there would be a transition in the interim between the first phase and the next phase.
And as of right now, we don't have funding for that next phase, but we can safely transition that curve line.
Yes.
Okay, so,
I can go on and on.
no, I know. I'll make a couple comments, because I do have questions.
You guys ask your questions and I'll see what
Yeah, and again, council can all chime in. I'm gonna jump in first, because chomping at the bit, I got a number of questions. One, Ben, I'm just gonna react to the pictures. This kind of looks like urban dwelling with skyscrapers and a W on line. Not exactly what I envisioned, but.
I apologize for the blocks of the houses, the data that we were able to pull in from the GIS aerials was limited.
But I think it's fair to assure the public we're not envisioning skyscrapers or W lines.
So you have a hyper.
So work with us, folks. This is, just to give you an idea of basically what the parking spaces look like. Ignore everything else. But, no, I'm joking about that. Paul, these 9 issues, what you were just addressing, you took us from kind of the grandiose vision of where we are, which I think is largely represented by these 9 issues. But then you did start to take us and the audience down a path of staging, because we don't have the funding right now to do the entire length of Bradley Boulevard. So anyone who might not have followed that, what Councilman Nowicki was saying was, these 9 items, this is the vision for all of Bradley Boulevard, all of Sylvan Lake. What the grant funding, that when we actually begin work, the grant funding that we have will get us down from the far eastern end of the lake near the ocean to Madison Avenue. A second wave of funding that is not yet secured, but we're confident we will pursue that, will come at a later date, and when that comes, we would continue with the second and or third phases. We don't know yet what kind of funding will be available. But what really counts a lot in the world of grant funding with the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Transportation is if you are shovel ready. If you have a project underway, it tends to be much easier to secure subsequent funding than when you're sitting here with, pictures. Is that a fair statement?
Correct. I think also the other key thing here is something else that wasn't mentioned, is that grant that we currently have, we need to award that contract by April 8th. If I'm not correct, April 8th.
I believe that's the case.
First week of April,
First week of
in
April.
order to secure that funding. And then you're going to we have to submit for permits here coordinate with DEP, submit our permits here by early October in order to make that schedule.
Correct. We have a pre-application meeting with DEP next week and to discuss the permitting strategy with them and what permits are needed, and then we'll proceed from
So if we were to prioritize all these things, so first of all, I think Captain Al said it, I think Martin Hughes said it, but to varying degrees, people are saying, it's not like we can pick 2 or 3 of these and save the lake. My simple understanding is we need to probably do all of these and maybe some additional things along the way. Right now, the one thing I've learned from 5 years of going to these TAC meetings, and even before there was a TAC, there were meetings with Mr. Shishis is in the audience somewhere. There he is in the back. Jim pulled me in 5 years ago. The one thing I learned is the lake is dying, ducks walk across it, geese walk across it, whatever. Yet we have 6 feet of sediment in what used to be a 7-foot deep lake. We're basically talking about 1 foot left of water depth, and the lake will die. So I guess first and foremost, the experts are recommending these 9 items. Are any of these items we can ignore and still feel confident about saving the lake?
No, and that's what Captain Al was trying to emphasize. Not one thing in itself, even if you were just to dredge the lake and leave everything else the same, it's going to re-silt back up. Things are still collapsing in. The outfall pipes are still dumping sediments from upstream, from that all the way up into Lake Alberta, all the way down, as well as our north-south streets. Every time there's construction, grass clippings, all that salt, anything coming off the roads, are all draining directly into that lake with no treatment. And so all that sediment, and you're seeing that acceleration. So we have to do everything we can to limit that. One of the things. Also, the ecology of my understanding, that as well as Captain Al, is that the oxygen in the lake is lacking. And if we don't have vegetation around the lake that helps with the dissolved oxygen, you can turn around and dredge and do all those things, but an unnatural shoreline basically limits the oxygen of the lake and basically doesn't allow fish and wildlife to live. And so those things are all components of this, as well as the shallowness.
So I'm going to go quickly, bullet by bullet, but the first bullet, dredging, enlarging Sylvan Lake, dredging comes later. But the concept is enlarging the lake to create more room within the lake. What people may or may not fully appreciate is the sediment we're talking about. Captain Al referred to almost 100 cubic yards. Think about a football field cubed. That's how much sediment we need.
100,000.
100,000 cubic yards. Think of a lot of football fields. I didn't realize. I was worried about one football field.
About 17-acre land. But I think what you're trying to get to is we should probably walk through each one of these a little
Yeah.
closer. So the environmental mitigation by enlarging Sylvan Lake and reducing impervious road pavement. So the intent there is by reducing pavement that spills directly into the lake. From a permitting standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, you're reducing the amount of water that falls into the lake. That affects the temperature and the water quality. And so from a permitting basis of any project, whether this project, any project that's a roadway project or wall project, lake project, DEP from a regulatory standpoint wants to see, are you worsening the condition? Are you maintaining the existing condition? Or are you improving the condition? And so moving the wall 6 feet back is basically addressing storage, so we're not negatively impacting the storage of the lake. But it's not just the water in the lake that we're worried about, it's the floodplain that's outside of the lake as well. So we can't fill outside of the lake either above a certain, that one has to be offset somehow else. And so the strategy then, Ben, if you want to explain that a little closer.
So everything you said, I agree with. The idea is you remove a portion of essentially the earth between where the current wall is and where the new wall is going to be, it's a cut. So you excavate out that soil, and you're creating more volume for water to store in that area instead of the soil that's there. And then by reducing the amount of pavement, you're improving the quality of the water that goes into the lake. So the DEP sees that as a benefit. They usually think very highly of projects that reduce the amount of impervious surface or motor vehicle surface, because it's not just impervious, it's surface that's driven on. You know, the water coming off of the roof of your house is cleaner than the water coming off of the roadway. So they see that as a positive in their review. So this is a step in the right direction for obtaining those permits.
Right, so that addresses quality as well as quantity.
Yes.
And then the next one, provide a living shoreline from an environmental and from a regulatory perspective.
Yeah, it's a beautification. It's an improvement to the ecology, improvement to the water quality by having these plantings, by creating the bioswale that we want to create at the outfall. That's another benefit to improve the lake.
And the next bullet is the storage capacity of Sylvan Lake, which we've addressed.
Yes.
Because we're removing 6 feet, so that basically gives more storage capacity.
But that's also important for preventing flooding.
That's what, yeah, storage is right for flooding.
Just for the benefit of anyone who's had water in their basement as a result of flooding of Sylvan Lake, we need that capacity.
Which is pretty much everybody adjacent to the lake. And then we have a bullet here, enhance pedestrian safety by providing a pervious walkway between Silver Lake and Bradley Boulevard. So how are we improving safety?
So, right, as I said before, right now there's nowhere for people to walk on that side of the lake. Like I said, it's been observed that people park their cars along Bradley Boulevard, and they walk in the street to get to where they're going, mostly to the beach. And by installing a pervious walkway, pervious is a benefit environmentally because it's not a paved surface or a concrete sidewalk. It allows water to infiltrate through the surface, and it allows a spot for people to walk so that they don't have to park their car and cross the street just at an uncontrolled location, and they don't have to walk in the street. So that's a benefit to safety.
So in the first option, if we do not move the curb line and we put the wall and we take 6 feet of berm, then are we worsening or are we maintaining, or we're obviously not improving?
Yes, so in that situation, if we were to move the wall 6 feet and maintain the existing roadway and not touch it at all, and if you still wanted to put in a walkway, you would run into a difficulty with where you could plant trees and where you could install benches and the usability of the space between that walkway and the lake. Because when you think about it, if there's 12 feet, you don't actually have 12 feet of usable space. Nobody's going right up to the edge of the wall and using that space. They're giving themselves a buffer so they don't fall in.
And that surface of the grass is really not flat. I mean, it also there's a slope to it.
Yes, there's a slope to it. It's you don't have the proper slope to install a bench. So the bench needs to be level so you can sit down and it's accessible. And by not creating that additional green space, we're just taking away the grassed area. It's not very functional.
And if we maintain parking, as in that upper picture,
yeah,
and did not put a sidewalk, and you reduce that 6 feet, it would create a worse liability based on not accommodating, reducing the ability for people to walk on grass. If we reduce the berm by 6 feet by cutting back, by pulling the wall in,
Right.
but we didn't touch Bradley Boulevard, we said people just walk on, we're basically saying walk in the street. Does that increase a liability?
Yes,
What's
so.
that, engineering?
Right, so, like I said, we have the opportunity to evaluate the existing conditions and make improvements. And what the way to improve it is to provide a way for every mode of transportation to use use Bradley Boulevard. So currently, we have a road where cars can drive, but you don't want pedestrians on the road. That's not a safe situation. Pedestrians are safest on the sidewalk or on a walkway that's dedicated just for pedestrians where cars can't drive.
Is it useful to have the illustration of the 3 different plans with the numbers?
It's used in the mics.
Oh, you can't hear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody could use it.
You gotta.
You know, I guess, in the interest of time, rather than beat some of these points to death, I get concerned. I personally get concerned, so I'll say this as a council member speaking to my colleagues. I get concerned when we go too far down the path of, well, it's good for traffic safety. Well, it's good for the heating of the lake to a degree. I'm concerned, I want environmentally sound things. If the outcome, if we do something environmentally geared towards fixing the lake, saving the lake, and it also softens traffic, makes it more safe, great. But I will also say I don't want to do anything to change Bradley Boulevard's width if you're going to tell me we're doing it only for traffic safety. If we're not doing it to save the lake, I think, from my perspective, we're wasting everybody's time.
No, and I think that you look at it from multiple different standpoints. From a traffic safety standpoint, there are benefits, and from an environmental standpoint, there are benefits.
But do we need to do it then, to save the lake?
Yes, it's
That's the crux for me, because otherwise we can talk about it.
I know we gotta.
Yeah, yes. I mean, there's a lot of
Okay.
details.
I know.
I'm gonna just ask a few questions briefly, because I know everybody has questions and I wanna get to the audience. But real quickly with this sidewalk, you say it's pervious. What is the sidewalk that's there currently by Sylvan Lake Park on the east end of Bradley Boulevard? What is that there?
that's common.
That's concrete. So will it match it? Does it look the same? What color is it? And how is it pervious?
So the colors have not been decided yet, but it's similar to a track surface, a running track, like a high school track. It's a kind of a
Is it similar
rubberized
to-
aggregate.
Is it similar to what Lake Como used around their lake?
Yes,
Okay.
same type of product.
Lovely, love that. Okay. And do we still have access for anglers?
Yes.
Good, I like that. And then, I know we have a lot of questions out there, so I'm gonna keep it brief and let the other council speak. Thank you very much.
So I'll just jump in. I've been working very closely with Paul on this, and also, helping to educate the community. So I'm pretty fluent on all of these different elements, and I feel very strongly also about saving the lake. I've lived in Bradley Beach for 21 years. For 24 years, and the lake has been a very meaningful asset to me. I live on Monmouth Avenue. It's my lake as much as it's anybody else who lives in town. So I thoroughly enjoy Sylvan Lake. And I just want to point out that when you're looking at these 3 cross sections, the one at the bottom, we plan to actually eliminate the parking on the south side of Bradley Boulevard. We actually have a net gain of 1 foot of space, of travel space, in each of the lanes. So that's actually a gain. And I think that, again, what's most important is is to do every element that we can, as much as we can, to work towards saving the lake. And I think that aesthetically, the net result will be a beautiful lake. And I think that it won't really change the character of Bradley Boulevard. I think it'll be functionally as it's been.
Councilor Weber?
Yeah, questions, Captain Al, the 97,000 cubic yards, is that just to dredge that little channel down the middle of the lake?
No. So that's all the material that's in there right now that we could remove if we had a place to put it.
So-
It's less for the water quality improvement channel.
Okay, so that channel would be less to, okay. Is the REPI grant only for planning, or is there actual money to do this work?
So the grant we have now through REPIT is planning,
Okay.
okay, and that's to get the permits. Basically, once we all have a collective idea of how we want this design to be and how it's gonna help improve the lake, then what I had said with these other projects, we can use as match. You'll go back to REPI and they will give, when they invest in you for planning, they usually wanna come back and implement something with you too. So they're invested in this grant. Yeah, and it's a one-to-one match.
Okay, and is there any chance that, do these things go, sort of both start moving ahead? Because it sounds like the money that Ben's talking about is kind of there and they're ready to go, they just need a plan from us and whatever. Is there any chance that that happens and one of these three options is, happens on Bradley Boulevard, and then we're still, pardon the pun, but mucking around and trying to find money to get it, to get the other stuff, the living shoreline and all that stuff done, or can they go in parallel course?
They can, but with your deadline, we've already talked about this before, the engineers I'm working with, Princeton Hydro, and with CME, we have to come together. It's gonna be after his pre-application meeting where we were talking about possibly peninsulas, getting people down more closely to the water with native vegetation, stormwater outfall, retrofits, things like that. So it can happen parallel, but I don't know about the timing of everything. And when you say funding, well, we're already trying to get funding to do it, but we don't know exactly what we're doing yet because we haven't hybridized the design with Ben yet. So the money's moving at different rates.
That's my question, comments?
The money's been trickling in, and 200,000 sounds like a lot of money, but when you're looking at having to spend 10 million or 15 million, 200,000 is a trickle. Fortunately, we've had that money thanks to American Littoral to begin the planning to get us going. But to really launch this thing, and by the way, Avon has largely used 300 grand here and 400 grand there to build a living shoreline without being able to address the health of the overall lake. Living shoreline helps, but they have been able to do nothing yet to coordinate dredging. We can't yet coordinate dredging, but Bradley Beach, thanks to the prior administration, Mayor Fox, did come up with $2.4 million, the number we're talking about tonight, to fix our bulkhead. And if we have blinders on and we fix our bulkhead, it does nothing for the lake. But because we've got that list of 15 or 20 people on that TAP committee, 3 of whom or so are represented, 4 of whom are represented here tonight, those 20 experts are giving us guidance as to how Bradley Beach should begin the spend of this large quantity of money. Our 2.4 million, you heard, should be able to get us down this path of extending the capacity of the lake. Get us down the path, not complete it, but at least give us a very good first step. And, as Captain Al said, we can use that spend as matching funds for any grants we get from the federal government especially, that usually are matching required. Any other comments for us, or can we move to the public? Okay, I'd like to make a motion, we open discussion up to the public for comments or questions.
Thank you, TJ. Mr. Newell? Yes. Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Newicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gutierrez?
Yes. Questions or comments? Great.
Ray Castellano, 604 Bradley Boulevard. Mr. Mayor, I will read your statement in a minute. The format tonight was really difficult for me because our town engineer said probably 10 things that I disagree with. They were either embellished or exaggerated. If I give you a pail of sand and I put a couple of extra grains of sand in the bucket, in the pail, do I have more sand in the bucket? So when he makes a statement that, you know, I'm digging out 6 by 1,070 feet of dirt in a 17-acre lake, he's adding 0.86% to that lake. 0.86. That's not going to make the difference in flooding. And so that to me is a trigger word for the people here to believe that that's going to happen. A similar statement is made about the temperature of the water going into the lake when you remove that much pavement. We have so much water going into that lake, and I think Mr. Majeski, he showed us a picture with the blue lines of the whole neighborhood, water coming from everywhere, pavement from highways, pavement from streets. I see it coming from by my house, this wide of a tube. It makes no difference. It's so negligible. And these are, and there were probably at least a half a dozen other statements. And so this format doesn't allow me to debate with him because I have to sit in my chair. So with that said, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to read the statement I prepared so that other people can have a chance tonight. I'll try and make this decision simple for the council. The big issue and why we're here tonight is about narrowing Bradley Boulevard. You need to decide if you want to support the residents living on the streets facing the lake that are asking you to preserve the view from their home and their existing neighborhood. I presented a week ago at the 9/2/25 council meeting. At that meeting, I made it perfectly clear that the residents along Sylvan Lake are very unhappy and do not want Bradley Boulevard narrowed. After the meeting, I was contacted by Councilman Nowicki. After a few short texts, my friend Bob and I met with Councilman Nowicki and Councilman Greenblatt last Thursday, and I'd like to thank them for that meeting. They were very generous with their time. We met for 2 hours and 15 minutes. While we agree on the infrastructure repair projects for the outfall pipe, control gate, filtration system, and dredging, we do not agree with narrowing Bradley Boulevard. Why are we doing it? First, it's because the street's not safe. After showing data, it's the safest street in town. Then it's because we need additional water capacity in the lake. After showing data that it's less than 1%, then it's because the street's too wide. And extra pavement is heating the lake. After showing data why that's not correct, then it's because we need more greenway. The justification continues to shift and move to fit the narrative. In its present state, the lake perimeter is enjoyed by anyone in town that wants to use it. There's enough space to fish, read a book, ride a bike, or just chill, and we see people doing it every day. Here's why we shouldn't do it. We don't know if we have enough money to construct a 1,070-foot bulkhead until we go to bid. Go to bid for what's essential only. Don't start a construction project if there's any possibility of extra costs going to the residents and recovered by the taxpayers. There's no current funding for Phase 3. To continue the narrow street and wider greenway from Madison to Main Street, and that's unlikely to ever get done. With money tighter than ever, why would anyone in either political party get excited about funding a wider greenway for Bradley Beach? There's just no business case. It is not what the residents want. Why is it that when Avon residents along the lake decide that they don't want a walkway, it doesn't happen? But when Bradley residents don't want their street narrowed, their voices are marginalized. Ask yourself if you can ever imagine a day when Avon would narrow the width of one of their streets. It would never happen. Look at the sign behind you and read it. Look at the sign. See what it says. It was just put there. The Borough of Bradley Beach proudly serves you, our residents. Are you serving the residents by voting for something we don't want? Please don't drink the Kool-Aid. You need to decide if you want to support the residents living on the streets, facing the lakes, that are asking you to preserve their home and their neighborhood. Please do the right thing.
Thank you, Ray. And if we have time, depending on how late the evening goes, we'll try to give you more of an opportunity to speak if you'd like to.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Yes.
Terrence Wright, 406 Madison Avenue. I guess before I came to the meeting, I had a totally different conception of what was going to be going down. But now I understand, I believe I understand what's being put on the board here. Captain Al said we've got to get rid of 97,000 cubic yards of silt. And this whole project here for 2.4 million might be covered 100%, which is great. But again, it's only a first phase, and like this gentleman just said, I don't live up there, I live on Madison in Midtown. But it's going to take away a lot from those people, I think, aesthetically. Now, all of the aesthetics are being considered with the 2.4 million, I can understand, but Captain Al said the crux of the matter is to save the lake, we've got to get out nearly 100,000 cubic yards of silt. So this doesn't address that. So even if we did the whole up to Main Street, widened it, and trees in, put sidewalk, bike paths, unless we dredge the 100,000, we're still going to lose the lake, correct? It's not going to address getting rid of the silt.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, by part of it, it's all these things
So,
together. But
and
yeah.
you mentioned an amount, I think you said $10 million to get
That's
rid of the
just
silt?
throwing some out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know how much
Yeah,
or how.
could be 10, could be 15, 20, whatever.
And the state's told us we can only take out what we can use.
Yeah. So my feeling is, based on what's been said so far, we don't have anything like $10 million. I don't want to bond $10 million. And quite honestly, it sounds like the residents would be quite happy to leave it the way it is. So from what I've heard so far, I'd like to keep it status quo the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Do you need our names and addresses
Please.
for the record?
Yes, please.
Sandy Chapman, 506 Burlington. I spoke briefly at the...
Please speak up.
I'm sorry?
They can't hear you in the back. If you could
Speak into the microphone.
speak up.
You're just speaking to
Is
me.
this better?
Yes.
Thank you. I spoke briefly at the August 5 meeting, generally in support of this project, with frankly a lot of thanks to the people that have been laboring hard to get us to tonight. But I do have some questions and concerns, one of which relates to the overall cost. I don't think you know that yet, nor do you have the funds for that yet. And if this project must be done, as people have said, holistically, all the pieces have to come together to ultimately to save the lake. I am all for that, by the way. And I guess one of the questions is, if a piece falls out for some reason, for example, from Madison to Main Street, we still get the result, if everything else is done. I don't know the answer, and I really rely on technical people for that kind of stuff. One of the things I think we're entitled to know is the ultimate cost and what happens if you can't get the funding you anticipate for a piece and it falls off the table. You don't get the benefit. By the way, I'll quickly segue because I have a bunch of stuff. How's it going to be decided what happens and when? Are you going to do a survey like you did for the church? Or do a referendum?
Referendum.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
referendum would be the way to go.
I'm asking the question.
Yeah, no.
I'm looking for them to ultimately answer the question. And then the timing. And then the timing because of when you're going to know whether all the pieces to your puzzle fit. So I'd like that addressed. At some point, tonight may be premature. I listened to the gentleman there. I'm not surprised that people along Bradley Boulevard, and at the risk of alienating some of my neighbors and my cousins that have house, and my brother that has house on Bradley Boulevard, those views are quite parochial, frankly. If the view of the engineering folks and the environmental folks and that list of everyone else that was in the TAC is that the lake needs to be expanded, not stay the way it is, and not contracted in order to get the part of the benefit that will occur because of that, to take the 6 feet off Bradley Boulevard. The rest of the town seems to do perfectly well with narrower streets. My concern with the photographs we had earlier was if you get rid of all the parking on the south side, I think I'm doing all the tourists that come into town on any nice weekend. But again, I am perfectly for, I live on Burlington Avenue, so I'm not immediately affected, but I love the lake. And that's the price of being in a town where the other residents get served if it's needed to widen the lake and narrow the boulevard. So be it. That's the price you get for living in a town where other residents, in fact, my children, my grandchildren, your children and grandchildren will benefit decades from now by saving that lake. Damned if I care about 6 feet under every boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I guess I'm a dissident because I live on
Please
the.
speak up.
I think I'm a dissident,
Your name and address,
unfortunately.
sorry.
Sorry, Jeanette Schneider with 508 Bradley Boulevard. And it's nice to have a wide street for sure, but it's not as nice as having a lake and not having flooding. It's the price we have to pay. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Other comments, questions? Yes, sir.
I'm Kevin McGuire. I think I'm loud enough for everybody to hear. I live at 402 Bradley Boulevard. I think I'm loud. I don't need that mic. I'm loud enough. I've always been loud.
Everyone here, Mr. McGuire.
402 Bradley Boulevard. I'm right in between Burlington and Madison. Big question to me is, what happens? You could talk about all the project money we have. We all know it's going to go beyond that.
Yep.
Taxes go up. Mr. McHugh mentioned about property values going up. That's great, but taxes are probably going to go up further than property values will. The other question I have is, if you promote bike lanes on Bradley Boulevard, you're also going to probably promote bike usage on Main Street, and that's a horror show on Main Street. There's no room for bike lanes on Main Street. There's a bike lane there, but it's like, you take your life in your hands, I think, riding a bike on Main Street. I have a few other things, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's, yes, very important that all the repairs be made, bulkhead, outflow pipe and such. But I hear very little. What? Oh, yeah. It's a terrible sounds or something. Anyhow, it's important that we hear about all the repairs.
Can you do your name and address?
Your name and address.
You know the drill.
Jane, you know my name.
I know I do, but they know.
Joe Kulik, Monmouth Avenue. Again, we know it's important about the repair, but I hear very little about dredging the lake. I mean, you can make all those repairs, but if the lake dies, what good are the repairs? What about dredging the lake? Is there any plans? Anybody can do it?
So I'm not going to answer everyone's questions, but I know that's a critical question that everyone has. I spoke as recently as a week ago to Director Tom Arnone. The county has dredging capabilities, but the county and everyone else can't remove silt materials that are contaminated. We are waiting for the results of the measurement. Unfortunately, we don't have the results yet, but 13 years ago or so, measurements were taken, and the lake was deemed to have more than acceptable contamination levels. It's like 8 particles per million, and we were somewhat in excess of 8 particles per million. If over the last decade plus, the lake has got cleaner, which the experts tell me they doubt, we might be able to dredge the material from the county at a nominal cost. More likely, unfortunately, I'm just telling you what we all know now, more likely than not, the contaminants remain. We will not be allowed to take them out of the lake. But if we have extra capacity within the lake, we can put them there. Another thing we're not talking about tonight, but I'll let you all know it's it's an option out there. Totally separate project. The borough is expanding our promenade, expanding the boardwalk down towards Avon, south. That's going to need fill, that's going to need foundation. We don't know, right now, the DEP would tell us we can't take the material out of the lake. But if we say we want to take it 50 yards across the street, and if the foundation is, Paul, you got the better wording here, but structurally, yeah. If the siltation is strong enough to handle a structure on top of it, we might be able to take some of the silt and put it in with the extension of the promenade. There are a lot of moving parts, but probably the most important, if you're all standing here waiting for us to tell you we got $20 million lined up to do everything, we don't. If you're then going to tell us you can't do anything, so do nothing, then you're writing the death certificate on the lake. We're trying to incrementally achieve a goal. And this borough, and I'm not just blaming Bradley Beach, I think municipal governments in general often fail the people because they don't think strategically and they don't think long-term. We haven't always, Bradley Beach, including me as a member of the council for 5 years, there are times where we've missed the mark, where we've paved a street that has 100-year-old sewers underneath it, and then we have to tear up the pavement. A lot of times we react to where the money is immediately. And we have $2 million here, we have $4 million there. We could do a first step towards a more strategic long-term goal, or we could just say, oh, forget it, we don't have all the money. So all I'm saying is we don't have $20 million. And if everyone here wants to wait until we can fund everything, all we're going to do nothing is the alternative I'm hearing. And if the alternative is nothing, the lake's going to die. So I think all of our discussion as a council over earlier meetings, the discussion that Councilman Nowicki's had with the TAC, everything is expert people. And you've heard a couple of them tonight, many other experts in the room, folks representing the federal government, folks representing the New Jersey Department of Environment. I don't think we've had the DOT, have we had DOT there? But these other experts all telling us these are the ways to do it, these are the ways to make sense. Save this lake. One, we want to win. They want to win. Whoever said moments ago, won't name names, let's all be serious, funding is dried up, and no one's going to spend another penny on this. There's no business case to be made. Honestly, I just respectfully disagree with that. There is money out there, people are willing to fund, but they want the right projects. And from everything I've heard our experts tell us, this is a right project. The DEP says we'll find money. The federal government says we'll find money if it's the right project. Are we creating more, green space? Are we doing ecology effective, adjustments? Most of the things you hear, I said this earlier, but most of the things you're hearing tonight are positive impact things. But they're not about, when we say it slows traffic and somebody says, well, we've got one of the safest streets in Bradley, I'm not here voting on this, discussing this because I want to slow traffic on Bradley Boulevard. I'm here because I want to save the lake. I've invested 5 years ago in meetings. Councilman Nowicki's invested a couple of years in going to meetings. We want to save the lake. And if anyone can give us better ideas, it's either give us better ideas or tell us you don't want to save the lake.
So, Mayor, just one more comment on the dredging funding. Captain Al mentioned this. Right now, he's being funded. We've spent $200,000. You guys got another grant for $200,000 for planning design, which includes the planning of dredging, and that's a portion of the money to do the planning of that, right? He also mentioned that the REPI on construction, which is the next phase, will match dollar for dollar. So our strategy for dredging is to take dollar for dollar of every project that we implement, each piece of the puzzle, adding those together to present to the federal government, to the Department of Defense. You guys have invested $400,000 in planning. We have now put in $6 million worth of projects, or $7 million of projects. The living shoreline along Avon, the outfall, the outlet gate that we're doing, this retaining wall, all these improvements will add up to over $7 million. And we're gonna go back to the Department of Defense and say, okay, put your money where your mouth is. We've invested $7 million now on your planning grant, that we put all this together. Now you need to come to the table and do a matching one for one. That would be like $7 million worth of Department of Defense. Hopefully they'll have the money. And that's our first strategy, to be able to fund the dredging. And so that's key. And then we are also looking at other ways of getting money through Green Acres, through the county. So we're looking at all the other, and then the worst case would have to be through the Water Infrastructure Bank. You would have to not bond, but borrow at 0% interest to 75% interest free. That is the worst case. And also a mitigation is not to dredge the entire lake potentially, but to build this water quality channel that basically does a portion down through the center of the lake, deepening the center of the lake, armoring that with some engineering methodologies to be able to create a deeper lake down the center that would preserve it for some period of time, and then continue to find more money to stage additional dredging. But that's the engineering that hasn't been done yet. That's the grant that he just got, and that's what our next steps are, is to start to get that into place. But that REPI money is number one way to get funding for the dredging of Sylvan Lake through the Department of Defense.
REPI is the federal government again.
Are we ready to go back to questions?
Not yet, but I will come back on that. I noticed another distinguished guest tonight, Dr. Collar, former council member. Doctor, I'm putting you on the spot. I appreciate if you don't want to comment, you don't have to. But I know that you were the liaison to the Sylvan Lake for a number of years. And I know you were a big advocate for dredging. I know the money was never there, but do you have perspectives one way or another that you'd like to share with the public?
I would like to hear everything. I'd like to find out all the facts, what it's going to cost, what the impact statements are going to be to the residents before I have a comment. At that point in time, when I have enough knowledge of the project, I'll be happy to comment. I have to go over Army Corps of Engineers design, and we can look at it at that point in time. But right now, I'm here just to learn what's going on.
Okay, thank you, sir. Other comments, initial comments? Yes, in the back.
I just got.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You were so.
No,
it's not you, it's the mayor.
Did I do something wrong?
No.
Not yet, not yet.
Well, we're all girlfriends here, it's okay. Okay, Eileen Shishias, 112 Fourth Avenue. I'm a little bit nervous, so I have to preface that. This has become a very highly emotional issue. And I understand what everybody's concerned about. But I also realize that our borough, has reached out to the dream team of environmentalists, engineers, and we have the highest level people working on this project. And not to be critical of the resident, well, let you say, if our lake will look like Lake Como, because I just drove by there, and that's very charming looking, where they have resident, and it's like park life on the one side, and the residents have full view of the lake. It's charming, and it fits what I think we want in Bradley Beach, number one. Number two, I think it's a highly emotional issue about narrowing the street and obstructing the view of the lake. Well, if you have parked cars there, parked all summer, you can't see the lake, number one. Number two, this is where I compare and contrast. I live first block. I used to be able to look at the ocean, and if you sat on the boardwalk, you could look at the ocean. You can't do that anymore because the borough made a decision for the greater good of our town to put the dunes in. Would I love to be able to see the ocean sitting on the bench that I dedicated to my grandparents and my parents? Yes, but it wasn't for the greater good. And I think the residents along the lake, and I had relatives live along the lake, and they've had nightmares over floods and water in the basement up to the ceiling in their basement, fish floating in their basement because of the condition of the lake. You have to think about the greater good of our borough. And if we need to do things that are not popular for some of the residents, for the greater good of the whole borough, you have to make a very difficult decision. And I hope you can understand my compare and contrast to the dunes. I know it's just the way I think, but thank you.
Thank you. You're next.
Cara Vlahos, 513 Burlington Avenue. Agree, greater good, I'm all for that. My questions are more about principles and like rules. So we had the opportunity, I want to thank Councilman Nowicki and Councilperson Greenblatt for meeting with us a couple weeks ago to try to get some of us educated. In that meeting, I asked, and someone else asked about decisions. So my question is framed really around what I've observed as must-haves in the project and kind of what I'm going to call nice-to-haves, right? Saving the lake, must-have. Walkway, maybe that's a nice-to-have. Benches, I'm going to call those nice-to-haves. What is the process to make the decisions on the must-haves? Does the council decide, is it a referendum? And what is the decision-making process for the nice-to-haves?
Well, it won't be a referendum, at least I can speak for myself. The council is elected to make decisions that are in the best interest of the residents, as someone pointed out. We want to do what's right for Bradley Beach. I think for all of us, I'm not just speaking about the council, I think we all want to save the lake. And if that is our collective goal, we have to come up with the best way to do it. We've made strides. We think a lot of what we're talking about tonight are steps towards saving the lake. So you can say, well, you don't need benches. You're right, we don't. But we do need dredging, we do need...
I'm not arguing that. So.
No, I know, so, but, well, I think to your point is, what's the process? Once we've thoroughly vetted it, and it's a process that's gaining momentum. It's taking 5 years to get to tonight. We've got pretty good designs. We still have got to get feedback from the DEP. We've still got to figure out what grant funding's available. So it will evolve further. We're not done tonight. But we will pursue a process that ultimately gets us to a point where we, the council, have to decide, can we afford to save the lake? Can we do this?
To your point about 5 years, I would like some context. The first time I heard about the topic was really in August, and it was sort of word of mouth. And I understand there was some canvassing in the areas close to the lake, and there were some flyers distributed to homes close to the lake. But if this topic has been so passionately pursued for so long, why did it not really only become sort of a thing in August, when like the whole town could have been maybe better informed through the use of the What Borough website, et cetera, for the topic?
Unfortunately, we do what we can to reach the public. I've been a liaison, I'm new at being a mayor. 5 years I've been a council member. 5 years I was the liaison for Sylvan Lake. Twice a month I gave updates on Sylvan Lake, twice a month for 5 years. You can go to the record, you can go to the minutes. Now, they weren't this detailed, but I said teams are meeting, we're discussing, whatever things we need to do to save the lake. And in those meetings, we invited people to go to Sylvan Lake meetings. We are, in the past few months, starting to crystallize these ideas from our experts. So we're sharing them. Whether we do nothing at all, whether we do everything we envision, the one thing you cannot criticize is we're sharing. So to your point, why didn't we share earlier? We're sharing the information as we're getting it. We're moving forward as fast as we can to take action to save the lake.
Well, Mr. Mayor, let me just add, there was a presentation like this in Avon, it was like a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. I mean, just some of the basics about the plan, and obviously it was their side of the lake, but a lot of stuff Al talked about, the living shorelines, it was, it's been happening, it's been a process. To answer your question, we're here now, it's coming to this because we're getting closer to a decision point, so that's why it's more
And
salient.
this is the third workshop that this council's had on this section, this particular project.
Gotcha. Ben, question for you. Why are crosswalks dependent on the narrowing of the street? That wasn't clear to me.
They're not dependent on the narrowing of the street, but in the plan that we're proposing, by installing a walkway on the lakeside of Bradley Boulevard, you want to have places where people can safely cross from one side of the street to the other.
I guess my question is, why wouldn't we want that as it exists today? I mean, we have constant traffic on the weekends, and there easily could be crosswalks in
That's
this
kind
current
of, I'm
configuration.
sorry, that's kind of the point. And what I said early on in my presentation was that we have this grant funding, we have this project that we're doing, and it provides us an opportunity to look at what other improvements we can make in addition to replacing the bulkhead.
Okay.
And also then part of it is, if we were to put a sidewalk on that side of the street, we don't have one today, there'd be more incentive for people to get over to that sidewalk.
Correct.
I'm gonna be
You don't
real-
have any place to put that crosswalk because you have no sidewalk over there.
Right, there's nowhere for people to cross to get to if there's no sidewalk or walkway on that side.
Ramps. Okay, my last thing, because I know I'm out of time, but in the meeting we had last August, or sorry, a couple weeks ago with Councilperson Klingblad and Councilperson Wicki, I think to the earlier point made, it's really hard to follow your math when it's just spoken and there's not a visual. And I just, for myself, would really appreciate an executive summary of an itemization of what are like the must-haves. We gotta do this, we gotta do that, these are the nice-to-haves. This is the funding, whether it's known or unknown. To have an executive summary of the overall picture, I think would serve the community very well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Steve Ecker, 506 Monmouth Avenue. First of all, nice to see everybody. It's been a while since we've been at a meeting, and congratulations on earning your spots up there, and thank you for your service at the Bradley Beach. I came here not really knowing exactly what was going on, but I jotted a few things down, and I'll try to make it as brief as possible. But when was the last time the lake was dredged? I didn't hear anybody talk about that at all.
We never, it was 50 years ago.
It was 15 years ago?
50.
50 years.
No, actually, met somebody that did it.
Okay, what does a dead lake actually look like? And what is the expected date of death?
A retention basin. You got it directed up there.
Yeah, he's answering the question. What does a dead lake actually look like? I mean, when it dies, what do we expect it to
It loses
see?
oxygen, you know, fish die, water, the fowl don't come because there are no fish. I mean, I'm no environmentalist at all, but Captain L, can you answer that question for the audience?
It's gonna look like a wetland.
What is a dead lake?
Like a
What does it look
marsh.
like?
Yeah, so there won't be any water.
So growth will start to grow in the bottom of the lake and come up.
As more sediment comes in, you're eventually gonna fill that up.
Okay.
With all these different projects going on though, you could slow that down and kind of start reversing it.
When's the last time the lake flooded, other than Sandy, Hurricane Sandy?
2 years
It was October 2023, it was at 2022. I mean, and the last day of September.
Yes.
Yeah, we had that 10-inch rainfall event. It flooded.
Did it come all the way up to the houses on Bradley Boulevard?
No.
No?
No, but a lot of.
So just in the street?
A lot of flooding from the ground.
Could I answer that question?
Sure.
These answers aren't accurate. The groundwater got very high because no one knew how to open the gate and let the water from the lake go into the ocean. The person that knew how to do it retired. The new person didn't know how to do it, waited too long, the groundwater rose, and people that had crawl spaces along Bradley Beach, Bradley Boulevard, and Burlington and some others, they had water for the first time. They had never had water for dozens of years, but they had water that day. Groundwater.
So actually, the gate is broken. DPW operates the gate to open it to let more flow out. Every time they go out there to do it,
It has to be done manually.
It's a manual gate.
It's always been a manual.
But the problem is all the wood on that gate is corroded and broken. And so every time they have temporary supports on it, trying to hold it in place, and they put plastic in front of it to prevent it from leaking. So, and it still leaks. So every time they turn it, it cracks it and moves it. They're not sure if it's going to be stuck open or stuck closed. And so every time they touch it, it's extremely sensitive. And so what happened in that particular time was it was broken. They couldn't get it open. So and then also in the more recent rainfall, they couldn't actually get it closed. And then and because of all the leakage, the water's leaking out, and all of a sudden the water level's going too low. And that's why that's a critical project that we need to advance.
Okay, thank you.
Ray, just so
Yes,
you're
sir.
aware, the expertise for opening and closing the lake resides here in Bradley with Howard DPW. The person you referenced who retired was a gentleman named Scott. He was the head of DPW in Avon. His retirement had nothing to do with the gate not functioning. What Mr. Nowicki said is correct. The gate has not been functioning. We're looking at spending a good amount of money, largely funded. How many?
About $800,000.
Which should be funded through, largely through grant funding. But wherever you got that information, I just wanted you to know, those two towns, Fletcher Lake to the north, Avon to, I should say, Ocean Grove and Neptune to the north, and Avon to the south, they rely on Biagio Capone and his team for opening and closing the gates. Continue, sorry.
Thank you. Since you brought it up, what's the status of the North End Lake, Fletcher Lake? Is it similar? Is it a similar dire straits as Sylvan Lake?
There's a couple of things that have happened with that lake. They replaced the bridge.
Got rid of the geese.
And they also replaced the retaining wall along there, the sheet pile wall. So there were projects that had happened over the last several years. But again, the Geese Patrol was added, and there are issues with that lake from a water quality and stormwater. They also couldn't map. The county wasn't able to get clarity on how the water was actually coming through the pipe systems, not just Sylvan Lake, but also Fletcher Lake. And so they were going through a study recently to try to determine where's the water coming from places up watershed, Neptune Township.
So the reason why I ask, because it sounds like that's going to be coming down the pike soon as well.
Every single lake, 13 of them in Monmouth County,
Well, that's-
the lakes are all having the same problem.
Right, so I think that's something that should be discussed thoroughly, is if this is happening with all the lakes, if we clean ours up, right, just in one section, one of the 13 lakes, how quickly is it going to deteriorate back to the level of the other lakes? What is the long-term, solution? I mean, how long is this going to last before it fills back up with sediment, especially if other towns are dumping stuff into the lake? Now, before anybody decides whether I'm for dredging or against dredging, or for projects and not projects, there's a couple things that I'm definitely for and against. One thing is Bradley Boulevard is the best road in our town. I think doing anything to it would be a disgrace, especially making it smaller. I watched Avon build their watershed and their bioswale, and they did a great job over there, up in the front corner. I also worry about losing parking. I know we talk about parking in this town a lot. I think losing even one space over there is going to be detrimental to the town, especially in summertime. I also know that we charge for parking up there. If you take it all away, how much money is that going to cost the town?
Roughly $30,000.
$30,000. It's
It'll
going to
cost
cost
the beach.
if we took all the parking away from just that one side. I mean, I know paid parking didn't go all the way up to Main Street anyway. And then the one thing I always thought this town needed was a sidewalk from Main Street on the lake side all the way to the beach, and we only have that one short sidewalk. And like a bunch of people have mentioned today, the sidewalk around the lake in Lake Como and Spring Lake is wonderful. We drove by there tonight. There's a zillion people walking on it. It looks beautiful. If that's the plan, I'm all for getting a sidewalk from Main Street on that side all the way down to the beach with that pervious stuff that they use. This water treatment facility that you talked about, like trying to treat the water before it goes back into the lake, where is that going to be located and how much is that going to cost?
I don't know the price of it yet. We've installed those at Rec Pond, 14 of them.
Okay.
But it would
That's
go
the
on the
secret thing.
Avon side by the DPW buried. That's
Okay,
the
we'd like
plan.
some more information on that, I think. And the DOD grant, which Paul, you brought up again, which I appreciate. It sounds like phase 1 is paid for, correct? So there's enough money in there for phase one. So I don't really see any reason other than, you know, disrupting the road over there to at least, you know, do what we can at the east end of the lake to try to put that money to use since the money's available. I would like to see maybe the DOD, you know, match whatever, it's a match, right, correct? In, you know, phase two and get that lined up if there is gonna be a phase two. And what are we doing about the other town's water that we end up, you know, taking into that lake? I mean, it seems to me like we're relying on other towns to keep our lake clean, and I don't know, you know, how good other towns are at.
I met with Director Arno, who's the head of the county, I don't know his exact title.
He's Commissioner of the
Right.
Commission.
Right, but he controls a lot of the grant funding, you know, he coordinates it at least. Met with him just a couple of weeks ago about a number of things, 6 or 8 things, but traffic on highway out here. But specific to dredging and, what was your question? I lost it.
The other
I don't know where I'm at.
The water's gonna come in, we can't regulate water.
No, yeah, you can't regulate water, exactly, so
What they're doing.
right, so that seems like a very important, you know, part of this, is if we can't.
I
so-
lost my thought.
Yeah, it's okay.
Whoever answered for me, but we believe we can control it. Director Arnone is leading a group that is looking at this, the runoff, and Paul, you probably know this better than me, but the runoff from Lake Alberta through Neptune City, that's coming into our lake. And Paul, you've already had a discussion. I talked to Arnone himself, saying we want in on that because their study is stopping at Sylvan Lake. We're like, no. We need you to look at the treatment facility that we need to fund, maybe the county can fund.
Yeah.
But we're a part of this. You can't just dump everything in our lake and not involve us. So we're working all elements, all angles, largely thanks to Councilman Miller.
Okay, thank you. And one last thing is, I know there's a curb strip, that's a little strip of grass in between the street and the sidewalk. And I noticed on your pictures it didn't have that curb strip, which is probably good. That saves, you know, that puts the sidewalk right up to the curb, but where the cars are, which gives you a couple extra feet, you know, on the lakeside. So I think that's the way, well, I don't know, for a walking path, you know, maybe not so much, but if it's not gonna be a walking path, if it's just gonna be parking, you know, for the curb to keep people out of Bradley Boulevard. Because like you said, I do see people walking in the street on a regular basis when they park along Bradley Boulevard, and you do see, you know, parents, you know, pulling a wagon full of, you know, chairs and stuff like that, and their kids are walking in the middle of the street. And God forbid something happens, you know, with an accident or something like that, it's gonna cost the town a lot more than $2.4 million if we're talking about all this and then there's no safety, you know, things put in, you know, in action to make pedestrians get out of the street. So I think that's also something to think about. And I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Hi, Lori Vidal Fresco, 302 Monmouth Avenue. I have a few things I want to address. First, are the street lights going to be moved and the sewers going to be moved? And is that included in the $2.4 million?
Yes, the sanitary sewers are staying where they are. The storm sewer, the inlets, the drainage catch basins, whatever they're called, that are along the curb line, we moved it in 6 feet along the sewer.
And the street lights, you said?
Street lights would be moved too.
So is that, is the 2.4 million included in that? That includes that?
Yeah.
It does. Okay. Second thing, with all due respect, you make it sound very black and white that we have to widen the lake in order to narrow Bradley Boulevard, widen the lake in order to save the lake. There are many ways to climb a mountain, but the view from the top is the same. Third thing. This is less about the view than it is about the functionality. Have there ever been a traffic study as far as pedestrians? Because this boulevard is used for jogging, for exercising, for rollerblading, for skateboarding. You can't do that on grass. And the 5-foot walkway is not wide enough to accommodate all of that. And that happens, you know, when I sit on my porch from 8 a.m. until 11 or 12 p.m. in the summer, and then from 5 p.m. till 8 p.m., this is what I see. And as far as people crossing the street, I don't think it's fair to address problems that have never been an issue before this proposed plan was introduced. So now this proposed plan is introduced, and now all of a sudden we have a pedestrian problem. There's never been a problem before. And people can cross the street, and they can walk on the grass if they choose. And you can put speed bumps if traffic is concerned for you. I think it's more dangerous to narrow the room and have people rollerblade, because they won't be doing that, and skateboarding, and they won't be doing that if it's too narrow. The other thing I want to address is the parking. I didn't love the parking, but we need the parking. We made $2 million in beach revenue this year, and maybe you said it's $30,000, but what about the people that go buy badges? I mean, I don't want to lose the parking. I don't want the parking there to come to narrow Bradley Boulevard. But I think it's important that we have the parking because we need the revenue. Our taxes will go up for that, I believe. I don't know if that's true, but I believe that. Another thing is the historical preservation of Bradley Boulevard. It's a historical road. And yes, it is not a county road. It's not the biggest road, but it's the biggest road around the beach. Main Street is a county road and Ocean Avenue is a county road, right?
Yeah.
So the historical preservation.
Main Street's a state.
State, thank you. I knew it was wrong. That's something to think about, the historical preservation. Again, you make it sound like if you don't widen the lake, we're gonna kill the lake. And I don't know that that's the only way to do it. I know that's your preferred way. It's obvious that's your preferred way. But it's not, it can't be the only way. What else? Okay, we all want to preserve the lake properly, but we do need to find a happy medium for those who live on the boulevard as well as the rest of the town. Residents whose tax dollars will probably fund a portion of this project. Again, am I wrong?
Yeah, you're wrong.
But it's not bid out. How do you know how much it's really going to cost if it hasn't been bid?
Based on our best estimates, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
the other thing you mentioned, just so you're aware, it doesn't impact taxpayers. It would be beach utility that loses that revenue from the meters. The beach might have to bump their badges 50 cents or something, but it would not impact.
Oh, okay, well, thank you for clarifying that. Anyway, I guess that's about it, but I just really want to make it clear, it's less about the view than it is about the functionality, actual functionality of Bradley Boulevard. Have there been studies? Have there been pedestrian studies? Ben?
There's been a traffic.
Not cars, pedestrian, how it's actually utilized.
We did prepare a traffic memo about the multimodal use of Bradley Boulevard. Cars, bicycles, pedestrians.
So how will narrowing it affect that, in your opinion?
It should not.
Okay, I beg to differ.
The traffic will not change.
No, the traffic, cars won't change, but the way its functionality is.
Well, the pedestrians won't be walking in the street anymore.
They don't need to walk in the street, they can cross the street now, they do have an option to do that, they have. Some people cross the street and some people don't.
That is.
But it's never been an
definitely
issue
correct.
before this project.
I said it, you've heard some residents say it, it's been observed that people do walk in the street.
But have there ever been accidents?
I don't know.
Just saying, it feels like, and this is the last thing I'll say, it feels like this is a justification, another justification for this project. That's what, a lot of this feels like that to me, like here's this project and now you're gonna justify it by the pedestrian, justify it by the lake will die if we don't widen it, the houses will flood if we don't widen it. It's very scary and people react to emotion, including me, but I'm not buying it, I'm just not, so that's it.
Thank you. Please.
So there's an illustrated map from the 1860s that's sitting on this table. I had seen this map, and then Jane also, prioritized that map in order to show that Bradley Boulevard, to refer to it as preserving Bradley Boulevard and the size of it, the size of Sylvan Lake in the 1860s, or whatever date that map is, was larger. There was larger volume in the lake. You know, what we do in terms of engineering in this country is we choose to accommodate what we want to see. And we find when we're damming things and when we're changing waterways, we have problems because Mother Nature is going to rule ultimately. So Sylvan Lake was a larger lake before.
But there were no roads on it.
Exactly. Well, that's my point. That's my point, and that's why we see a lot of water issues. So we're trying to make the lake smaller, but we previously made the lake smaller in order to create this wide boulevard. This wide boulevard, I mean, it's a subjective judgment as to whether it's a value or not, whether it's aesthetically a value, whether it's a valued asset. When you compare it to the lake, which is the greenway of the lake aesthetically. So I just wanted to make that
I think it's
point.
another key point that if you put in the retaining wall 6 feet to provide for the living shoreline, which is the ecology element of this project, then your berm is 19 feet wide, okay, that it basically allows you to walk along there, recreate there, fish there, sit there, lunch there. You're now knocking that down by 6 feet. So now you're taking something that's almost 20 feet wide, or 19 feet wide, and you're knocking it down to 13 feet wide. But meanwhile, we're saying that greenway of that along that berm, that park along Sylvan Lake is not as important as all the pavement that sits there 9 months of the year that nobody uses. So what's more important? Is it to have an environmentally sensitive greenway along the park, along the lake, that is more environmentally sensitive, or is it more important to have a 50-foot wide pavement that the majority of the year sits vacant with nothing on it, except parking in the prime season of the summer for 2 days of the week, for 2 months, 3 months. So environmentally, you're better off reducing, in my opinion, and maintaining a bigger greenway, or maintaining that same equal greenway of 19 feet. And you can't do that if you leave Bradley Boulevard alone. And so you're going to take that parkland along the lake, and you're going to narrow it and make it smaller if you don't affect Bradley Boulevard. Marty?
Sorry to just interrupt, but just to build on that, I think there's a confusion maybe, or we didn't communicate well enough, but the connection between that aspect of the project and the water quality trench, right, and the dredging, right? So the more places that we have to dredge, the more we can take out of the middle of the trench and create and use a living shoreline. The deeper the trench can be, the wider it can be. The more places we can beneficially use dredge material, the better we can make the depth of that trench or the width of that trench. And that's what's going to really keep your lake alive, is creating depth. You need to create depth, right? And so if you don't go that, the more you can create opportunities for creating that living shoreline and putting dredge, whether it's Promenade or other places, better chance the lake has. You were just talking about that.
Other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Peter?
Is here okay?
You're so shy.
Peter Paletti, 512 Bradley Boulevard. Peter Paletti, got it? 512 Bradley Boulevard. For 10 or 12 years, I've been involved with the Sylvan Lake Commission in one manner or another, either selling pizzas or cleaning up the lake. I have 2 questions on the resolution, if I could. It speaks to enlarging the lake. Are you speaking of surface enlarging or capacity enlarging?
It would be both. The 6 feet, it's marginal, but that's from a regulatory standpoint, that's from the DEP's perspective. We're not narrowing it, we're actually widening it, which helps them approve our permitting for the project. But also ultimately, when we dredge, we're going to restore that depth of that. And so different projects will do different things.
When they tube the sediment and go stack it on the west end of the lake, which I'm sure we'll see some stacking, will that reduce the surface of the lake?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
We haven't designed that yet.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
it'd
that
be
part of the
considered
lake
filled.
could be shrunk. I would like everybody up on the council here to go take a look at Avon's living shoreline at the west end. It's living right across the lake. It's 10 or 15 feet into the lake. And if that's what living is gonna do to us, I don't think anybody wants it. And promises that the DPW is gonna go and clean it out, isn't gonna work. It doesn't happen. Another on the resolution, I think it speaks to eliminating paid parking down at the east end.
Yes.
Is it possible that there would be unpaid parking?
No,
the
the
south
intent,
side.
no, the intent based on, and again, based on those photos, elimination of parking, that happens to be paid parking from Madison. I think for this project, that paid, I think the point was to emphasize that this was gonna eliminate that, the paid parking on that.
I get it, but when all of us are long gone, I think you might wanna say eliminate all parking.
All parking
on the
along
south
the
side.
south side.
Just so some future generation and say, let's put parking back. That's the way I like it. I'm not here to argue with anybody's numbers, but when the last administration put in for the grant that we have, $2.4 million, the cost of that project is $3.1 million, all said and done. It sounds like we're complicating the project by scooping up the road, smoothing out, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how I'm not going to argue with your numbers, but it was 2.4 2 years ago. I mean, 3.1 2 years ago, yeah, 2.4. You might want to go revisit that, 2.1 now.
And I can give you a little clarification on that. Through the whole process, I've been involved with the Silver Lake Commission, with the Borough Council, with Captain Allen, and his team, and Marty back there. And the concept, even during the grant application phase, wasn't fully refined, but we had an idea that this would not just be replacing the wooden bulkhead, it would be something more comprehensive than that. So the estimate as part of that grant application accounted for contingencies such as what we came up with as kind of where we are now.
Are we tied into following that grant? Because the grant speak to taking apart Bradley Boulevard and eliminating it?
The grant is not specific to exactly what the improvements are. It's specific to the limits of it.
So we would be going against that grant application. Okay. Any estimate how long we do this next phase, we get it done, and then we want to go up the lake? Any estimate? 3 years, 5 years, 7 years?
So for my grant that I have, we're hoping within 18 months to have permit applications in. So towards that year, as we get a design finalized, we can kind of get an idea of what we can do, when we can do, and how we get the funding. Once permits are in hand, we're shovel ready. So any funding that comes up, what I do at my job is I piece together big dollars sometimes. So I might get 3 or 4 different funders coming together. And then of course, once you start building it, the money's easier to access that. So it could take 3 years, 7 years, I don't know yet. It depends where the money is.
Okay. At DOD grant, I think we had discussions that we were targeting the 2027 fiscal year for the federal government for funding on that REPI grant for construction. Is what I recall from the
west end.
No, that would be for the dredging and all that. That's where the construction dollars we were trying to line up to make sure that would be the earliest that we'd be able to apply. The western portion of Bradley Boulevard would be depending on what grant we get to complete that. There's multiple ones we're looking at, but that will determine which funding source we're going to use. So we don't have it defined yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. One of the bullet points, I think you said recreational
Yes,
area.
state your name.
Sorry, Richard Dwight, the carrier, 302 Bradley Boulevard. Not actually a resident, but represent property owners. You said something about a recreational area in one of the bullet points?
Yes, the reference is that the area along the lake, the berm area, was open space to include recreation. So passive recreation, active fishing, walking, jogging, picnicking, skating, people go out and skate. And there is talk of trying to look to see where we can incorporate even a kayak launch. There's an interest in the community that has expressed, how can we put back the dock that was once there, actually in front of Lori Fusco's house, on the lake. And that's something that's being looked at as well, is how to get that and how to fund that.
Gotcha. Also, is there public access to this information for future reference?
We should, our intention is to put this on the website, and we've just been struggling with getting this information on the website, but that's part of our commitment to get it out there.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Other comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, Dan Bagley, 303rd Avenue. We talked a lot about the dredging aspect of it, and that's critical to this project. It's also very expensive. So my question is, let's say it is the $10 million. How long is that going to last before the lake fills back in and we have to spend another $10 million to do it again? Or is part of this project going to be something that prevents that sediments from coming in so quickly?
Yeah, so part of that, there was talk about putting like a treatment device. The main flow coming into this lake is across Main Street. And so the intention is to put what's called a manufactured treatment device, which is basically a chamber under, in the ground, a big manhole, if you would, that basically has, for no easier way to explain, a giant coffee filter that basically catches sediments as they're coming from upstream. And basically, that has to be maintained, but that basically filters or captures sediment so it doesn't just come and spill into the lake. And so that's one of the main flows. But in the other locations is the stuff that's happening on our north-south streets. So we have to control that, as well as erosion, which is partly of this shore stabilization that we're trying to create with bioswales and or vegetation along the banks to establish that, so that you don't continue to get erosion into the lake. And I think that's what we've seen that happened over there where they're building a new living shoreline. It seems like some of that material has sloughed off into the lake. And so the idea is we got to try to vegetate those banks very quickly, put that manufacturing device in, as well as bioswales, so to collect that material before it spills into the lake. So how long will it take to fill up again? We don't know.
At least there's some
process. So there's mitigation to slow it down and prevent it. And every construction project is a problem because we have rules. They have to put silt fences in and whatnot to prevent that material from just washing out into our streets. As soon as it gets in our streets and leaves and grass blowing, all that stuff goes into our drains and then into our sewers, and then it spills out into the lake, and it goes up into organic sediments. That's the problem.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Me?
Jim.
Jim Shishers, 112 Avenue. Just a couple of things. I've been involved with this. Louder. So, yes, I've been involved with this project from May of 2020. And I went back into my files, and there is a resolution by council that basically endorsed the concept. Obviously, it was not as comprehensive as what we're talking about tonight, but it was recognized that the lake needed to be resuscitated, and the money just doesn't exist to do dredging. That's clear, otherwise it would have been done. So what was presented at that early stage was something that was considered creative and innovative based on a lake up in northwest New Jersey that DEP was recognizing as something that would be acceptable. And what's important, and you might want to add something to this, Captain Al, is that DEP is much more favorably looking at beneficial reuse of sedimentation. So the approach that was conceived here was recognizing that it would be extremely costly, $10 million or maybe more, to remove contaminated soil and transporting it to a secure chemical landfill. So this was a way of reviving the lake, but in a cost-effective way by building a living shoreline that would beneficially reuse. And in terms of ultimately funding the implementation of whatever it is that's determined to be what the council would approve, and you've had more experience with this, do you find that the funding agencies will more likely contribute funding for projects like this that beneficially reuse, as opposed to the alternative, which we know that the funding for it does not exist?
Yeah, so Jim, I had mentioned this earlier. In our conversations with DEP already, for doing the sediment sampling and that kind of work, they want us to use what we can as close to the lake. So any of that restoration, can we use 97,000 cubic yards now? That's a lot. So that's when we start talking about the promenade and maybe close by where we can get this sediment used somewhere. And the DEP looks favorable on beneficial use, sure. And I mean, right now, depending on the contamination, that's what it's really going to cost. Do we have to amend this material? If we do, what's that cost? If we have to move it off site, to say, you've heard of like coal mine reclamation and all that kind of stuff where they shove all the sediment down in coal mines and stuff like that, that gets costly. And I remember when we priced this back in 2003, so 20 years ago, it was already at about $75 a cubic yard to move. And that's probably double by now. We talked about that not long ago, I think, and we're like, man, like $150 a cubic yard that's contaminated.
But in the other projects you're doing, the one at Delaware Bay Shore, is there a lot of money? And where's that money coming from?
So we get all that from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
So would they be a candidate?
I think a community-based, so NIFWIF, that's the acronym for it, NIFWIF. They have quite a few different types of grants. Some are community-based, some are capped at certain type.
If this approach, something like what we're talking about tonight, is ultimately approved by council, but then gets permitted, with the permits, there are a lot, besides LEPI and US Navy Earl, there are lots of other opportunities for funding for projects like this that basically entail beneficial reuse, as opposed to dredging, and that money doesn't exist, but for beneficial reuse projects. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Just a couple of points.
And just to reiterate, I'll be right with you, just to reiterate, we're not deciding tonight to spend any money at all. We are trying to get, with your feedback, agreement on a vision that we can continue to present as we move forward. Yes, sir, Jeff. It's time, if anyone wants to go.
I'll take a break this time, Jeff.
Second time.
Joe Kulik, Monmouth Avenue. Paul, the outflow pipe, where is it broken? Are you gonna replace all the pipe, or a second, do you have to dig up Ocean Avenue?
No, there's a chamber on the east, there's a chamber that's east of the Ocean Avenue. So it's a section of pipe that goes from the ocean to east of Ocean Avenue, underneath the dunes.
Like the sand dunes on it? Okay, thanks.
And it's not a pipe, it's an old wood box that was built and that carried it, and that's why it all collapsed. And so it's being replaced with a pipe.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Show.
William Shook, 110 Fifth Avenue, Bradley Beach. This project, the 2.4, that's being funded by the state, nothing at no cost to the residents of Bradley Beach. I have no issues with that, other than I'm going to use number 2, what you have as the middle drawing design. That's the one I would be in favor of. All the other ones, why would you want to remove revenue? You're losing revenue by removing parking. Removing parking, you could do that at the end of all the other phases. Right now, I would leave that alone, keep the parking, because that's revenue. Now, speaking of the revenue, if I'm not mistaken, years ago when meters were put in, it was stated that that money would go to Sylvan Lake for the beautification. has Sylvan Lake actually seen any of that money?
No, and I have a story for you, Bill, because you were definitely involved in all that discussion. Kelly Baird was the business administrator at the time. It happened, that decision was made to put in those meters to fund Sylvan Lake projects. When I first came on council, Ann Politi said to me, hey, and I was the liaison to Sylvan Lake, hey, where's that money? We want that money to spend on Sylvan Lake. As a new council member, I went to the CFO at the time, Sandy Rice, who found records from Kelly Barrett, the BA previously, that the council approved those meters. We put in meters to fund Sylvan Lake, and the state rejected that. They said, no, we have to use those metered revenues for the beach utility. We could not use them for Sylvan Lake. So the town didn't know that, and I only found out because Ann Politi was asking me to get money for Sylvan Lake. So that whole time we thought Sylvan Lake was benefiting, and all that money had to go to the beach utility.
So Sylvan Lake actually seen not one penny of it?
No, I mean, they get an annual budget now, $3,000. But as I mentioned, that's closer to $30,000.
Exactly.
That's like a basic beach utility rule, like you can't take beach badge money and spend it on, park benches in Riley Park, it's the same thing.
That's got nothing to do with the beach.
Yeah, well, no, because the parking is part of the beach utility.
People are largely parking there.
We kind of extend like Ocean Ave.
Okay, all right. But like I said, I would never remove the parking, leave the parking alone and remove that at the end. As far as the lake, saving the lake, you have to concentrate more on dredging. That's the only thing. If you remember years ago, Avon started to dredge the lake. What happened? They found that the silt was so contaminated that nobody wanted it. And now you're saying that there's thought about using it on the beach? I don't think that you guys can allow that.
Not on the beach, if we could do it, it'd be under the pond. It'd be like.
I don't think they'll allow you to do that because it's so contaminated. That silt is so bad. Plus you said 6 feet. If you remember, that equipment got stuck.
Yeah.
They couldn't get it out. So, concentrate more on the, dredging of that lake. How are we gonna do that? You're talking about the filtering system on Main Street, as the water comes in from the outflow pipes. That's gonna be contaminated. Who's gonna deal with the contaminated soil that's gonna be in there? I mean, yes, you're filtering it, the silt is falling down. Who's gonna remove all that contaminant? That's an area you gotta start thinking of, because it's still gonna come.
We're talking to the county about that very thing.
I mean, right now, there is a grant, and I believe Lake Alberta's being dredged, all right, which is gonna hold more water, so it's gonna help Fletcher Lake, but Fletcher Lake, the minute it rains, Fletcher Lake is getting flooded. I mean, people at Sylvan Lake, that doesn't flood. The only time it flooded was with Sandy, and that's it. Otherwise, I mean, I monitor it, I watch it, and yes, it gets water, but nothing like Fletcher Lake.
We've been getting a basement flooding, but you're right, not like flooding like we had it with Sandy. But we didn't.
No, basement flooding would be because the ground is so saturated, it can't hold the water anymore.
And the county is very involved in that study with Lake Alberta and the runoff into Sylvan. And I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, but we, Councilman Nowicki and myself, we're trying to get in fact, Norm Wolfhard, with the OEM, we have various seats at the table. Norm has one already. I've openly stated our request that either Councilman Nowicki or I can also sit at that table, because the focus has been the county's funding it, but the focus is on Neptune City and Neptune. And it ends as they hit Sylvan Lake. And I'm like, no. You have to include Sylvan Lake too. So you're right.
For 4 years, I've been going to those meetings. And like you said, it's more Neptune, Lake Alberta. Bradley Beach is actually at the bottom of the list. Just like the Transit Village.
we're working on a lot of angles here, but I appreciate your comment, and I agree.
Like I said, I would be more concerned about dredging the lake than anything. I mean, that's beautification, you know, living shoreline beautification. It's not gonna save the lake that quick. You need to save it quicker than what you have right here.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 3rd Avenue. Mr. Malik, could you pull up the previous colored rendering of the streets?
Speak louder.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the real, I'm so happy that Councilwoman Greenblatt, she mentioned this map. And I'd like everyone to come take a look at this map because it really reflects 1890, what Bradley Beach looked like. And the same mistakes that were made here on Sylvan Lake have been made all over. And I want to go over a few of them because, you know, having grown up here and having swam in a lot of these lakes and supported and things, these were tidal ponds. These had a substantial peat layer with cattails and everything. And that filtered all the water. Well, in the first 3/4 of the previous century, there was really no environmentalists. They were filling everything. This whole area where Bradley Boulevard is, you'll see fingers of the lake coming to where there are now houses. So everything was just filled and no one thought anything of it. Now you have people like Captain Al marching out for it, which is great. But the damage was done. Stockton Lake in Manasquan used to have a kiddie beach. The water's so horrible. There's no kiddie beach there. Spring Lake in the center of Spring Lake is actually a spring-fed lake. It was degraded in late 60s, early 70s when they redid their stormwater management plan and sent water off the streets into Spring Lake. You used to be able to fish by just looking at the fish. Now you can't do that anymore. So the engineering and environmental mistakes were made in the previous century. We need to claw this back now. And the only way to do it is with expanding that area and getting as much green space as we can and protecting it. Captain Al, you were so nice to say, you called something, wait, what was it, a transitional lake or something you called it?
It was called a
treatment pond. Does a treatment pond come with a maintenance book? Have you ever seen a maintenance schedule for a retention basin at a shopping mall?
No.
It's about this thick. You have to bond, it has to be maintained. So all this water that we're catching, no one's told us how to take care of it or how to watch it. I was on a State Planning Commission Zoom call about them changing the flood maps, and they weren't happy that I was there because I told them, you have to take care of your own water. Your own water from the Garden State Parkway, Route 18, Route 34, Memorial Drive, that's all your water with no retention along the way. That's why, as Councilman Wiki said, the erosion is so bad. Well, they couldn't wait to say my 5 minutes was up. But that's what happened. They want to change the flood map so we can pay more flood insurance, but yet they don't want to be responsible for their water by building retention ponds along the way. I would like us to go to the third one, doing the bike lanes. And my question for Mr. Matlock is, are there grants available for bike lanes?
There can be, yes.
Okay. And then this 2.4 million, we didn't know this was coming 3 years ago, and it showed up. We have to stay on the path to say, more money's gonna come because we have a team that's gonna make it come. We're gonna do phase 3, we're gonna do phase 4. I'm kind of happy, Mr. Matlock, that you used the rendering of the transit village for this so that people can see what 2085 is gonna look like in Bradley Beach with construction. So that's why we don't want transit village, because they look like that. But anyway, I would say we should use the third one, do the bike lanes, make it safe, let's recreate, and let's stay on the state and the county and say, you guys gotta take care of your own water. We're gonna help you, but you better give us more grants. Because all these lakes are ruined. Como Lake, you can't use them anymore. So thank you very much for putting this together, Mayor and Council, and all your time.
Once second. Gentleman in the back's been waiting a long time.
Hey guys, Joe DeFranco, 2 Atlantic. Don't know if I need this or not. We could spin this for another 2 years. We could, I mean, everybody's got an opinion. There's good opinions or not. The concern I have, and the crime to me would be if we did nothing, okay? If we sat back. If you're telling me that we need to put a plan together to secure funding, I say you take your best judgment, put that plan together, vote tonight for that plan. It's not going to be like this is going to be the Bible and the end game. That plan can secure funding, we can come back, we can tweak the plan, we can address it, but if we do nothing, if we don't get funding, I know I don't want to bear the burden as a taxpayer for the majority of this work, but I would like to see something done. So it's really just a comment. I just hope you guys vote tonight. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm back again. Kevin McGuire, 402 Bradley Boulevard. The gentleman just brought up a good point. Can we take legal action to force towns around us to create retention ponds, to let them keep their stuff where it's supposed to be and not come into us, that we have to take care of it, because it's their stuff we're getting, which is full of whatever their stuff is?
I would say legal action is a last resort, but
yeah,
we wouldn't rule it out. I mean,
we don't want to create a war, but if it's going to help us,
right now it's
dredge and likewise, because if we dredge and it's still coming in, we're going to pay for dredging again.
DEP has their state laws in place already that you have to deal with. If you develop, you have to maintain and treat your water and the quantity as well as the quality before you outfall it. And those are regulations and rules in place already.
Well, are they paying attention to that? Are they following those rules and regulations?
Well, that's the issue.
This is the issue, and this Monmouth County doesn't even know where the water's coming and going, and that's why we're pushing on them to give us that study, to complete it, and to include us in that study so that we can actually deal with them and make sure that they're treating that water and managing it and paying for it and taking it out of our project, put it into theirs. That's ideal.
So what's the study going to take, 18 and a half years?
No, it's underway. It's underway.
Neighboring municipalities and the county right now are being very collaborative. So as long as that continues, we're optimistic they'll work with us.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, Terrence Wright, 406 Madison. Some discussion earlier, Mayor, someone mentioned a referendum and you quickly said no. Is that you would not be considering a referendum on deciding what to do?
Speaking only for myself, I would not support that because there are things that I believe as a representative of the people, they've empowered me to do what they think is best for the borough. And I'd be afraid to put any major decision like this that I am confident is in the best interest of Bradley Beach. I'd be afraid a lot of uneducated people might vote against something that could save the lake, and by doing so, would doom the lake to death.
Well, I guess I'm looking at complete opposite. You know, you're saying serve you, we're the residents. And I think 4,200 roughly people versus 5 on the council, you only need 3 votes yes.
I understand.
I think I would let 4,000 people make the decision on this versus 3 people.
Should we ask them to make decisions on every other major project we do in the borough?
Major project, absolutely, like we did on the church.
For a referendum, so once a year we wait until the town approves a referendum. Many of whom residents don't even understand the issues you've all learned about tonight. I just disagree with you. Others may agree. I'm just being honest, giving you my opinion.
I mean, if we're talking $5, $10, $15 million, I think it would behoove you to give the residents.
We expect it to be grant funding, sir.
Well, if it's 100% grant funding, then it's a moot point.
Thank you.
Well, that's the plan. That's always
Yeah.
been the plan.
Okay.
But with this, with that logic, we would vote on extending the boardwalk, doing the Main Street thing, all these things that we're getting $1 million.
If it was $10 million, yeah, we would.
Right. But if we're getting grants, multi-million-dollar grants to do these projects.
splitting it
just
with
like
that.
we're gonna get a multi-million-dollar grants to do these projects. I'm just saying under that logic, we'd have 5 referendums a year because that's the kind of projects that we have.
So we agree, if it's 100% grant, we don't have to worry. So if it's 10 million, we're gonna have 3 people make the decision.
Of grants.
So excuse me, so what you're suggesting is if you have a project dredging, which is the $10 million project, that's not funded yet, you're suggesting that if in fact we were to move forward with dredging, you would not want us to just make the decision to go out and borrow or bond for it. You would want to have the community's input to agree with the $10 million investment.
Absolutely.
But if you could get grant money, and the grant money paid for it, then you would say, we
Go
don't have a
ahead.
referendum. So I think that was something that this council would have to consider when we cross that road.
Because remember, when we did the church referendum, it was roughly 1,200 plus against it and 300 plus for it, which is a 4-to-1 ratio. So, you know.
That was a significant expenditure. And
$10 million.
So to fund, so for fund the dredging and to go borrow for it, I guess that would be something that this council would have to deliberate with the public and consider putting on a referendum.
If it was,
I don't see it.
It's also a shared lake.
It's not, yeah, it's not just on us, it's shared cost.
I'm just saying, at the end of the day, the council is elected to serve the people, and if there's a really critical issue that I passionately believe, and I actually didn't want to demolish the church. I wasn't so passionate that I would argue against the referendum. It's a lot of money, the residents needed to vote. They specifically didn't vote on spending, they voted only on do not spend $10 million. I did not stand in the way. If somebody's going to tell me we need to go to referendum, a binding referendum,
that was
the church was not binding, and let a lot of people who have not come to meetings, who have not followed these issues, vote. And if they should vote 51% to not save the lake, I'm sorry, Mr. Wright, I would disagree with that. And if it was a binding referendum, I wouldn't be allowed to disagree. That's all I'm saying.
You're right, if it was 51% for and 49 against, I could see that. But from what I'm listening here and people I'm talking to on Bradley Boulevard in town, there's not too many people who are going to be voting for it.
That's okay, we never get 100% approval either.
No, I'm not talking 100, I'm talking about 4-to-1. The church was 4-to-1.
I'm not talking about the church.
I'm talking about when we had a referendum. You're talking about 51%.
That was a referendum.
That was 75-25.
That was appropriate for the people to decide how to spend our money. We are talking about grant funding, as Councilman Nowicki just said. If we ever got to the point where we need to save Lake and we couldn't get any grant funding, we probably would have a referendum.
I'm with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Patton, 207 Evergreen Ave. Just first, you guys are the first administration to tackle this project. Nobody else wanted to touch it with a hot. It's obviously controversial, a lot of different opinions, but we're doing all this work to sort of get at what the middle ground is. Mayor, you said earlier, it's all about priorities. And saving the lake is the priority. I would never want to see this go to referendum. We do put you 5 up there to make these decisions for us. That's why we're talking about it now. Couple issues. One, Captain, I wanted to ask you a question. If you take 6 feet of sediment out of that lake, you're going to add probably between 35 and 44 million gallons of water, cubic gallons of water. That's going to establish the ecosystem, and you're not going to have the lake heating up anymore because you got 2 inches of red mud underneath and the sun's hitting it all day. So that's probably the single most important thing to do, other than fixing the gates. You got to fix the gates. The filter system is a what if. There's so much we don't know about the water flow, the gallonage, where it's coming from. So there's a lot of work going to be done on that. But I think we got to do those 4 things. Then, Paul and Shauna, I want to thank you for giving us time this week, a couple hours to talk about this and really hash it out. I still come back to what that lady said earlier. It's a wants versus needs. Yes, this looks great. But we have a track record of not hitting budgets. We've had tremendous inflation. We've had tremendous labor cost rise. Then when I get the numbers, I'm gonna comb through them because I'm a math guy. And I've spoken last week, or last council meeting, I have no numbers I can look at. We have lots of numbers we're pulling out of the air. No, everybody's asking, where are the numbers on this whole thing? Okay, we wanna see it on the website. I'd love to see it on a spreadsheet. And I'd like to see these contractors' bids when they start to come through, because I think we're dealing with costs from before. I just don't think 2.1 million when we thought it was going to be a $3.1 million project 4 years ago makes sense to me. The math the logic doesn't make sense. I'm against doing, I'm absolutely 100,000% for doing this. I'm against narrowing Bradley Boulevard. But the third option with the bike lane is probably a compromise. $30,000 on the revenues I could care less about. I live right there, down by that triangle, so it will affect me too, possibly. But I do think that all the wants we want to do for this, I walk that grassway every day, 2 to 3 times a day around the lake with my dogs. It's fine. It's great. I go to walk on grass and pavement, okay? Have you talked to anybody on the other side of Avon, now that living in the shoreline is 14 feet high, starting from the ocean in? They can't even see the lake. They can't even, it's 10, 14 feet high. We took pictures of it with people standing there, and it was like 2 people tall. Jane, you can't fish that side, because what they did is they put the living shoreline in, then they put a net all the way across to keep fish and stuff from going in to the, so when you see the plants are all there, but then if you look out about 10 feet, they got a net going all the way, you can't fish there. I'm not a big fan of the natural shoreline because I don't want to be the experimental that Marty talked about, the experiment here to do it right. They made lots of mistakes with that shoreline. And I have lots of friends on that side who don't like it. So basic researchers said, hey, talk to those people. Was it a good move? Okay, I've talked to lots of them. I've walked up and down. So I think that, we got to think about this. I'm not worried about shrinking or expanding the lake, because if we had 40 million cubic gallons of water by dredging it, that's going to solve a lot of our problems. So I just want to say that. Thank you guys for tackling this, because nobody else had the guts to do it. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Andrew Yosha, 414 Burlington Avenue. 3 quick things. I want to support the suggestion for an executive summary, to share an executive summary and a detailed cost estimate. I think that would be extremely helpful. I just want to also just make sure I'm understanding in an overview way what it is that we're talking about. The lake is unhealthy. The lake is too shallow. We have valve and pipe concerns at both ends of the lake. The shallowness of the lake and the valve and pipe issues are creating a flooding risk. Flood prevention has to be priority number 1. The reason why we're focused on, the presentation rather, has been focused on the retaining wall is because there's funding available and it's use it or lose it funding. It has to be used by a certain date. So the order in which these several problems would be addressed might not be the ideal order. It may not be the order in which we have to address them by virtue of having this funding available to us. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. I think that you can write the executive summary.
I have some experience in terms of issues like this. Understanding all that, I think that, for me, option 3 seems the way to go. My third question really is a clarification for the wording of that I understood to be the wording of the resolution. I may have misheard it. I thought that in terms of the parking, that the resolution talked about preserving the parking. But from other Q&A back and forth tonight, I'm given to understand now that the way the resolution presently reads is it's to eliminate parking.
Correct.
Okay.
On the south side, all parking on the south side.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How are you? Thanks for taking this up. David Critelli, 212 Evergreen Avenue. I've been listening to what's been going on, referring to the lake as a recreation area. I think pretty much everybody who bought in this town and the tourists that come down to this town come for the beach, not for Sylvan Lake. We've got probably close to a mile of boardwalk and beachfront, untold amounts of benches which go underutilized. There's benches on the east side of Sylvan Lake and tables that I have a direct line of sight from my house, which are very rarely used. regarding the living shoreline, my only experience with the living shoreline is what they did over in Avon and what they did in Shark River Hills. Shark River Hills along South Riverside, whether you drive or walk, you have no line of sight to the water at all. Completely remove your line of sight to that. My last thing, I was brought up that you don't fix it if it ain't broke. Now, we're talking about taking a perfectly good roadway, digging it up, spending millions of dollars to do that, millions of dollars to put it back together. I hear a lot of talk about grants here, grants there. I don't hear anything about hard money from grants. I don't hear anything about hard money, where it's coming from if those grants don't come up. Where that hard money is going to come from is from the taxpayers. And I think that if you're going to move forward on Bradley Boulevard, excluding what's going on in the lake, that should be brought up for a vote to the taxpayers, that what they're potentially going to be on the hook for. Because I see a whole lot of, grant money here, grant money there, but no hard dollars.
We do have hard dollars, 2.4 million.
But that's already spoken for.
No, it's our money to spend on this project that we've been.
That's for the lake.
For.
The road's going to cost more than that.
No, that's for the project that we talked about tonight.
Yeah, that may be what your bid is. When it comes in and is bid on, it'll probably be twice that price.
And if it is, we don't have any obligation to move forward.
I think it should be voted on by the taxpayers, because they're going to be taking the hard money out of their pockets.
If there's hard money to be taken, we will consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Dennis Luba, 600 Bradley Boulevard. I am a member of the commission, as you know, and I've also been on the TAC meeting and also been involved in this outreach process with Councilman Nowicki since he came aboard. And I just have to say, hats off to kudos, bringing it to the table and putting it out there. And the magnitude of the problems has grown exponentially over the last, say, 8 months or so. When we had changed administration and things came to light, we kind of went into light warp speed at one time. Point was made before that in the ideal world, you could do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But knowing and dealing with that with the experts, we have to fix this problem first. We have to fix what's broken first. We have to use the money if we got it first. I like the progression now in terms of the different options. I think that's been a big movement in the last couple of months. My own opinion is I kind of like the third option best. But I also know that you're wrestling with a huge problem with dredging. A lot of questions to be answered. I want to point out that the dredging is half our problem, not all our problem. So quite honestly, when we talk about dredging and the funding and getting this, there's another entity involved in this whole process too that shares this with us because they share the lake with us. So, just want to make that point known. But the other thing I want to stress is this is an ongoing process. We have kicked the can down the road so many times with these commissions, having been part of it, that now we have something that we can sink our teeth into. The fear is that it withers and dies on the vine, because either we don't get the funding, the grants don't come through, or somebody pulls the plug on something, and the next thing breaks. Somebody mentioned today, what does a dying lake look like? Well, take a look at our lake. I live up at the west end. There's about 1 inch of water now. There was probably 6 inches last year. My fear is next year there won't be any. And then it'll kind of look like Shark River. And we won't worry about dredging anymore. We'll be worrying about excavating. So my fear is we got to keep moving this along. And we have moved things along. We have moved things along much faster than I've seen before. And we need to keep the gas on the pedal going forward. But we also have to kind of maintain that process. The lake needs maintenance, whether it's DPW, treatment, geese, whatever. It has to be ongoing. Because if we don't commit to that, we're just going to go right down the tubes again. It will, because it'll go back to the way it was, and things will break, and then we'll have to fix the things that are broken. But I do applaud you and hearing the people tonight. speak, was much more than was done before in the past. So thank you for your support.
Sir, did you have a comment or question? Yes.
Rex Lozeski, 202 Bradley Boulevard. First thing is, if something's on fire, you put the fire out. The fire is dredging. If we don't dredge, we don't have anything. So let's find out what the dredging's gonna cost and get on with it. Or at least propose it and get some paperwork here to get it going. Everything else is fluff. If we don't dredge, we have nothing. I have experience with the state with the living shoreline. It's gonna be nice for a while. You've seen some Green Acres properties that are completely overgrown. We don't want that. We don't want 14-foot high brush in front of our houses. So we're looking at the lake. You brought up a map of 1860 or something here, and Bradley Boulevard obviously wasn't there. Neither was Lake Terrace. Those houses all fronted on Fletcher Lake. That wasn't a street. Get off that for a minute, and the bike lanes. Is that really a problem? Do we really need bike lanes? Are they gonna ride in a bike lane up to Ocean Avenue and then turn left and get on the bike lane? Oh wait, there's no bike lanes on Ocean Avenue, sorry. So there's no bike lanes there. We don't need them on Bradley Boulevard. And Ocean Avenue is much more risky because people back out of their parking spaces. Let's see. Fixing the outflow pipe or the inflow pipe, or the one that goes to the ocean. That's why my house flooded. It wasn't open because somebody forgot to tell somebody how to do it. Adding sidewalk. Cross the street, walk on the sidewalk that's there. The only time I've seen a crowd on that sidewalk is for fireworks. It's not a problem. You don't need to take 5 feet of Bradley Boulevard and put in a walkway when there's one on the other side of the street. Cross the street. You're gonna put in crosswalks. That's the ticket, cross the street. You're gonna lose beach parking. We know that that's a problem. Why should we lose beach parking? They made a big deal out of putting it in there. I have paid parking in front of my house now all the way down Bradley Boulevard. So now you're gonna say, okay, we don't need that beach parking now? So which is it? Let's make up our minds, okay? That's one, thanks.
So, thank you. A couple answers for you, sir.
Sure.
A couple things. What we need, what I steadfastly believe, is to save the lake, and we need the dredging.
Yes, we do.
And we need the capacity of the lake increased. And I'm not making this up, experts are telling me this. Your points are very good ones. We don't need bike lanes. We could keep parking. We could keep $40,000, $30,000 more of revenue in the beach utility. That does not help taxpayers. That is the beach utility separate. But when we sat down, the experts said, you need a bigger lake, you need to widen the lake. I haven't heard anything different. Then the question becomes, okay, so what do? We take away 6 feet. They want to know, can we take away 10 feet? And people said no. If we needed that 44-foot width, if we backed into 6 feet, we would have liked more. We said 44 is still the third widest street in Bradley after Main and Ocean. Then we said, so what's left now of a fairly wide street still, what do we do with it? And we said it would benefit the taxpayers, it would benefit you, sir, living there. We thought if we took away that parking from an aesthetic standpoint, it's not a requirement. And if you really care passionately about the beach utility, and a lot of other residents do as well, that the beach utility, a $2.5 million budget, if you really believe it should have that extra 30,000, I think the council would be fine leaving that. But we think it adds to the aesthetics of your property and increases your property value, taking it away.
I agree.
So we're trying to do things that benefit the residents who live there. But the one thing we can't get around right now is taking away the 6 feet. So what do we do with what's left? Councilman Nowicki felt pretty strongly, and maybe others as well. I don't want to take anything away from you, Councilwoman. That bike lanes would be good. I talked to the chief of police and said, why do you need bike lanes? He said, there aren't that many bicyclists on Bradley Boulevard. Honestly, we don't need them. We don't have them anywhere else in town.
Right.
We thought it aesthetically, keeping the flow of pedestrian traffic and cyclists would be nice for residents on that street. So we don't need those things, we need the 6 feet. And then the question becomes, what do we do with Bradley Boulevard after that? We're trying to take away the parking at the cost of 30 grand to the beach utility. Maybe that means we bump everybody's beach badges 50 cents. I don't know. I do know 110,000. Well, 110,000 individual badges are sold any given year, roughly a little over 100,000. So you can kind of do the math to figure out that 30,000, it's a few cents per beach badge. It's not a lot.
It's already $90.
Yeah, but so the only thing I think we're largely agreeing with is we're trying to expand the capacity of the lake. But some of the crosswalk things, we're just trying to add to safety.
Just a point, the gentleman earlier said that if you bring that lake out, the size you want it, it's less than 1%. Is that true? Is that a true statement?
I'd like to see your numbers.
The lake is 17 acres. If you figure it out, and you take 1,070 feet, which is the length that we're talking about, by 6 feet, and you compare it with 17 acres, you do the math, it comes out to exactly 0.86%.
So is that worth it?
But at 6 feet also provides you the ability to do planting along between the old wall and the new wall. So that's the aquatic benefit that is looking to be installed there. So it's not just the storage. You gain some storage, it's incremental. But you also gain some incremental benefit also for the 6 feet to do the shoreline and all that as well. And you have to move back because you have to put the new wall in. You can't put it in the front. And so we're also trying to offset these things. And once you move it back 6 feet, now you've taken that berm and narrowed it way down. And so, again, if you want to balance that greenway along there to the roadway width, when you have 50 feet of pavement that's not always used, does it hurt to take 6 feet and give it back to and maintain a 19-foot width along that greenway? So people can walk their dogs there, so people can hike, sit, whatever they're going to do.
There's a lot of places to walk.
No, in a moment we're going to vote on a resolution, and again, it's a resolution that just frames our vision.
Yeah.
We're not. One second. We're not committing to purchasing anything, just doing anything. We're just framing a vision, and I think a very legitimate question we'll have to decide is: do we take away the parking? We don't have to. Do we have the sidewalk? We don't have to. We do need 6 feet, and we'd like more, but we're not asking. We're looking for more. But all these other points you raised, you're right. They're not critical. We think they make sense in terms of.
Well, the critical thing is dredging.
Yes.
Getting the silt out. And where are you going to put the silt? I understand that's quite a problem.
Yes, exactly.
So that's, if we knew where to put the silt, we can start dredging as soon as we get a guy in there.
And we're talking to the county, and Captain Ellis getting measurements done on the chemicals, and there's more to come. We're just framing a vision for everyone right now.
Completely different subject, if you don't mind. Sound system's terrible. I know I can't hear anyway, but I'm sitting in the back and I couldn't hear half the people.
I will ask. Thank you. You had a question? Yes, sir.
My name's Rick Belouie. I live at 514 Bradley Boulevard. I've been there for 15 years. I'm a professional engineer. And in the last 10 years, the west end of the lake has filled up 3 feet. I used to canoe in that lake, and I can tell you this, water and mud doesn't flow uphill. All the mud that's in that lake is coming from west of Main Street. And we're not talking about anybody over there knowing anything about where this comes from. We know there's a sewage treatment plant over there. We also know there's no industry in Avon. There's no industry in Bradley. So where are all these contaminants coming from? This material is all contaminated and it's coming from Neptune. Nothing's happening. All we're talking about is us spending money.
No, we're
I know you're looking for grants. I know, I understand.
No, but we're working with the county as well. The county's looking at Neptune and how that watershed works, how it flows into us, and hopefully we'll get Neptune and or the county contributing funding to cleaning up their side of Main Street.
But in this day and age, and there's several engineers in here besides me, can you honestly believe that they don't know where that pipe goes? They can put a drone in there in seconds and find out exactly where that pipe's coming from.
No, they're working on it. that's a project.
We've been hearing that now
Yeah, well,
a long time.
so we just met with the county at the last TAC meeting, and they said that they had completed their study on laying out the pipe system, so I'm waiting to receive that. We haven't gotten that, but they're
Then no,
supposedly
they-
advanced it. They've advanced it supposedly.
Minimal amount of that mud that's in Bradley, or excuse me, in Sylvan Lake came from Bradley or Avon.
100%.
But I don't see.
We're
that
trying
here.
this is what this meeting's all about. We're trying to address that. You're absolutely right.
And just, a lot of contaminants come from roadways. They come from roadways, yes, there's oil, there's stuff.
It used to be, the old numbers, yes, the new cars now. Very good.
There's plenty of old cars, and we're talking about decades of this.
That's right.
Every paved road, in this watershed, it's a pretty big watershed, so it's not like a point source where there's some
Your
contamination.
very point, you said it's a very, very big watershed, and we're talking about 6 foot making a difference. Absolutely no difference whatsoever. No concern, there's no temperature difference. And this walk that you're talking about putting in, there's gonna be stone, and stone is just a little bit lighter than asphalt, so it's gonna be just as hot, so there's 0 temperature difference. Anyway, I appreciate everything you guys do, and I appreciate it. You gotta understand, it's a serious problem. The dredging is the old issue, this is, that lake is dying, it's super contaminated, it will not, I guarantee you can take my word, you're not gonna be able to use the fill that comes out of that lake to do your mezzanine extension. It's not gonna happen. That stuff smells so bad. If you started on the first day, you'd have every resident in town screaming about the smell before you got 3 trucks up to the other side of Ocean Avenue.
I appreciate
I've been in that lake, I pulled dogs out that fell in that lake. The smell is unbelievable. And it's all coming from upstream. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion that we close public comment and move on to the voting on the resolution.
You don't have to make a motion.
I'll do it.
Okay, I'll do it, yes. Mr. Noble? Yes. Mr. Greenblatt? Yes. Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Gutierrez?
Yes. Now, the reason I said we'll move to voting on it because I want to give us one last chance after hearing public comment to question the vision that we want to approve. Specifically, the couple of comments I jotted down. I'm wondering, one, should we put more specific language in here addressing this issue of keeping low vegetation? Because we don't have that in here yet, but I agree with that. Absolutely. Another one, the comment on bike lanes. I personally think they're aesthetically pleasing and they invite safe traffic and bimodal activity. But if we need more sharrows, I guess, on both sides of the road. Is that something we should continue to keep in vision? Bike lanes.
Versus share.
Versus nothing at all, or those sharrow things which are less defined than bike lanes. But
I agree with bike lanes, the resolution as it's written, kind of means like we're choosing that third option, the way it's written.
Right, without the
So, okay,
parking.
I am fine with that, yeah. But let's not forget about the meter. There was a comment to change the word meter. You said it, Mr. Mayor, it should be eliminate all parking on the south side. Again, that's
The only reason I think that we're looking at the bike lanes is because on Memorial Drive, they had bike lanes and they got more grants because they included that. That's why I would say that if we get more grants for that, let's add it. But do we need it? No. We don't have bike lanes anywhere else. We have sharrows here and there. We could just do that. And I think the less lines and the less paint on the street looks better to me.
or are you inclined then to keep bike lanes in or?
It's hard to say. I would say depending on the grants. I don't know what were your thoughts on this.
So for this section of roadway, the money's already there, we can give it away. To your point of grants, if you start to show that you want to start to designate bike lanes, you need 5 feet width. And the problem with the borough is that we don't have 5 feet width anywhere that we can accommodate that, like on Main Street. So you could just do sharrows. From a safety standpoint, the benefit of having a white line down there is that it's truly delineating to the track to the car, stay off the curb line, That's for people to ride their bikes. And it's telling the
Safe.
bikers to say, you stay in your lane, don't be riding out into the,
Right.
be aware that there's car traffic.
And that would go for scooters as well.
Right, and the benefit of that, with no paint, like it is today, people just kind of, find their way.
Right.
So, from a safety standpoint, from a traffic safety standpoint, I think you're better off delineating that. But I agree, Jane, that how can we minimize the striping? This is the
Yeah.
question. So that it doesn't look like a state highway.
Well, if it's designated specifically as a bike lane, does that exclude other vehicular traffic, like scooters and,
No, they're welcome to use that.
well, is that true? Is that?
The chief told me today, skateboards, for example, defined, not mothers pushing strollers. They would have to use the sidewalk. But other types of wheeled, vehicles could.
And if it's a dedicated bike lane, and now we're looking to help with funding for the rest of Bradley Boulevard, does a dedicated bike lane give an advantage in terms of grant funding?
It could, yes. And then what's interesting is, Borough of Avon has only one designated bike lane as well, that's Amy Avenue. We don't have designated bike lanes either. And so, the thought though is also is where we could, where can we find an opportunity to connect bike lanes would be a wonderful thing. But again, you're limited in space. So, and there is not a plan right now to do that. And so we would have to develop, that would be something we would have to start to work at is how do we connect these either to Sharrows, like Main Street could connect, we could connect to Main Street, but Main Street would have a Sharrow, not a delineated. So it's,
Okay.
We're not locked in, we can change next month.
Yeah.
But for the vision we want to put forward to the Department of Environmental Protection, we'll keep bike lanes for now. At least one or two people questions, should we take away the metered parking and lose what we estimate to be $30,000 for each utility? I still like that idea. I think that benefits, especially property owners in that area. It is costing the beach utility roughly $30,000. Is there any reason we should take that out of our vision? The elimination of?
Well, I think there's a perception of congestion on that street during high season, and eliminating parking, you lose the revenue, but then you reduce that congestion on Bradley Boulevard, where you don't have all these cars lined up there.
And it keeps the nature of the street as it was, so the nature of the street really doesn't change in terms of its usability, except for no parking.
So I think I'm aware of two very minor edits. Eric, I'm going to make a motion in a second, but there's just a doubling in the second bullet. I can give this to you afterwards, but there's a doubling of the words for wildlife. I noticed when you read it, or Paul read it. So I think it should say, including the creation of peninsulas for protection and support of wildlife. So I'm going to ask to strike that, and I'm going to ask to take out the word metered. Should just say eliminate parking on the south side of Bradley Boulevard. Any other edits?
Just that keeping low vegetation, what to add to
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That would be in
That's in
bullet
there.
2, right? When we're referring to the living shoreline.
Yes.
I'll say including the creation, provide a,
Including bioremediation swales with low vegetation.
Well, in the low vegetation, if you have an 8-foot-high wall, you can have 8-foot-high plantings and not necessarily be blocking your view. So I think the point is not low vegetation to minimize impact to the visual.
give me wording.
Minimize,
With vegetation that minimizes
Including
visual
impact.
Right.
Including bioremediation swales
Right.
that,
With low vegetation.
With vegetation,
with vegetation that does not adversely impact.
The visual.
to feed the view of the lake.
Okay, that does not impede the, okay. How about, that does not impede the views of the lake? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that we make some minor edits to resolution 2025-295, in the second bullet, I'd like to do two things. One is strike the words "for wildlife" on the second line, the beginning of the second line. So it should read, including the creation of peninsulas for protection and support of wildlife. And then continuing that sentence, and including bioremediation swales, and then insert after the word swales, that do not impede,
With vegetation, that does not impede.
with low-level vegetation, that does not impede the views of the lake. To improve, what?
But is the bioremediation swales, aren't those the areas?
And living shoreline.
And living shoreline.
And good to add, and living shoreline. It does not impede.
Can you take a shot at saying it the right way?
Yeah, and living shoreline, after swales, and
We'll get
living
this.
shoreline.
I need an environmentalist or an engineer.
Oh, you got one? Right in front of you.
They're everywhere, surrounded.
But
But it's water everywhere, but not a drop to drink.
And including bioremediation swales and living shoreline to improve the water quality in Sylvan Lake.
I would describe the height of the vegetation as soon as you mentioned the living, bioremediation swales, and living shorelines that
Living shorelines that do not.
Do not impede the views of the lake.
I might even add, like, you might want to say like drastically, I mean, if it peaks over like 1 inch, people are gonna be like, you impeded my view of the lake, you know? Significantly, drastically, however, you know. Some kind of modifier.
Does not compete drastically with the
Something like that.
Sauce is significant.
Significantly.
Okay, all right, so Erica, just so you're aware for the record, the second part of bullet number 2 would pick up with including bioremediation swales and living shoreline living shorelines, plural, that do not significantly impede.
Good brain.
That do not significantly impede views of the lake.
Get rid of the. Every time you see of the, cut that out. Just say lake views. There was
Right.
another of the.
Do
Just
not
short and
impede-
sweet.
Do not
Lake views.
significantly impede.
Always get rid of the.
Okay.
No prepositions.
Good
It's
tip
just
for the
good.
day.
Just
No
Do not
others.
significantly impede.
get to the point.
It's good. It's a good.
We're
it's a
working
good-
on it.
It seems silly,
I'm a
but
pretty good
you
at
have
it.
to say-
I'm a
you
pretty
have
good
to-
at
Yeah,
it.
what he's saying, you know.
I did it,
Yeah, I like
Guys,
that.
we're good. Try it again.
The whole sentence.
Swales and living shorelines that do not significantly impede views of the lake.
Lake views.
Lake views. Lake views. Lake
There we go.
views.
Not significantly.
Every time you folks see of the,
Lake
in this
views.
I hear you.
get rid of the.
I'm trying, it keeps coming back at me. Okay, try it again. After the word swales, insert, and living shorelines that do not significantly impede
Lake views. Thank you.
Where's your 4 foot?
And in the second to last bullet, the bullet that begins to eliminate, strike the word metered for metered parking. Everybody good with that? 'Cause I'm gonna make a mess.
Yes.
Yeah, and what about enhanced traffic safety by providing multi-directional bicycle lanes and vehicle lanes, as well as parking spaces along the north side of Bradley Boulevard. So we just.
No, the bike lanes are both sides.
Parking spaces.
Parking spaces.
We want to just make it clear that we're maintaining the parking
Okay,
spaces.
along the north side, you're saying? Can I say the word again? Okay, let's give this a shot. Anybody else? So continuing my motion, I've already talked about bullet 2, bullet 3, bullet 2, the first part. Eliminate for wildlife. And then the second part, after the word swales, insert, and living shorelines that do not impede lake view, that do not significantly impede lake views. Moving to the moving to the sixth bullet. Okay, I'll just read the second half of this. As well as parking spaces along the north side of Bradley Boulevard. And the. Someone ask a question there?
What about that again? Bradley views? Bradley Boulevard's north side. Get rid of the. Every time you say
Bradley?
the,
No,
it's
it's
waste
not.
of time.
I didn't say the, I just said
You should run for council.
along Bradley Boulevard's north side. I'm not gonna repeat it again, I really.
Eliminate parking on the south side of Bradley Boulevard.
Yeah, eliminate the word, in the seventh bullet, eliminate the word meter.
Okay.
It will read, eliminate parking on the south side of Bradley Boulevard.
Second.
Of them.
Okay.
You seconded. Erica, we're ready for you.
We're ready.
Okay, so you're just making a motion to amend it, get it to me, I'll amend it and repost it. How's that?
And approve.
Now I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
Good.
Now I will make a motion to.
Hold on, we gotta do the vote on the amendment.
Oh,
Okay. so-
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes, to
Mayor-
amending as discussed.
Thank you. Mayor Gubatose?
well, let me think about this. Yes. Okay, now I will make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-295 as amended.
Second.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Greenblatt?
Yes.
Mr. Nowicki?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
I've been waiting all night to make these comments, and I'm gonna make these comments, so I.
Go ahead, make it.
Okay. Mayor started out saying like, oh, this is gonna go back 20 years. I've been in this town 20 years. I think this goes back obviously longer than that. I've done some work in water quality stuff, and I think there's science out there that says when you make 10% of a watershed impervious, then you're impairing the quality of that water body that watershed's going into. So when did we cross 10% to that? 100 years ago, 80 years ago, it was a long time ago. So we're taking some of that back, and we're making steps to improve that. I take this, I know problems coming in from the west, but I think everybody in Bradley Beach is part of the problem here. I mean, we got, people cutting their lawns, people spreading pesticides on their lawns, people, landscapers blowing their grass clippings in the street. It's all contributing to the decline of the health of this lake. So I feel like these very smart people, and some are still in the room, have put together a plan and using other people's money, and this is the key, they are using other people's money to fix some of these problems. And I think, yes, this depends on that. A lot of things, it's all working together. It's really critical that we narrow the roadway so we have that space for the dredging. Everybody comes up and says, you gotta dredge, you gotta dredge. First thing you need is a place to put that stuff. This provides it. Even if it's only like 1% of less than 1% of the lake, it's important to have a place to put that stuff. So, and you are never, ever gonna hear this town talk about a plan that reduces parking, except for this one. And I think it does make sense in this case. I mean, people on Ocean Ave with really nice real estate would love to not have to look at parked cars, but you know what, they do. So all of us that live everywhere else, there's gonna be one street in this town where people get to look and not look at parked cars, at least not on one side of the street. So that's a good thing. So I would vote yes, stop there, vote yes. Thank you very much.
Mayor Gubatose?
I will vote yes.
Oh, my penny, you.
I vote yes, and we are about to end the meeting. I just want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank the folks who were here and left. Not necessarily easy decisions, however we voted tonight, but it was very important that we had this meeting. I want to thank Councilman Nowicki and Councilwoman Greenblatt for taking such a leadership role in getting out to the residents, talking to the residents. Again, not everyone's going to agree. We are shaping a vision. The vision is taking shape. I'm excited about that. It will continue to shape, and the more we learn, the more we'll adjust as needed. But we want to make sure we do what we think is in the best interest of Bradley Beach. With that said, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Hey, Paul, can we keep the storm fence still after it's all done?
Yeah.
Used to it.